OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
Good morning. It is 7:30 on this Friday morning. I hope it's good and well wherever it is that you are. Owen, Shane, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian. How are things?
All good. How are you getting on?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Adjusting to life without the full-on championship in your life, I'm assuming at this point? The DTs are wearing off a little bit?
Long gone. That's yesteryear. 2021, baby. That's all I'm thinking about.
The Mo's looking good, by the way. Looking really good.
Thank you very much. I need to hop on YouTube there to have a look at yours. But it was looking good yesterday. The handlebars have finally come good.
Yeah, no, fair play. We both have the ginger thing going on. And sure, listen, it looks good and all for a very good cause. And we're going to be getting into making it a bit competitive a bit later in the show as well. And we have a stack show coming up. We have lots of chat to come over the next couple of hours and a couple of surprising guests maybe as well. And the passing of Maradona obviously has been the big thing on during the week that's really got everybody's attention. It's funny, he's definitely one of those names and one of those people that everybody, you know, those things that sort of pierce the bubble outside of sport in terms of the conversations that you have even with people in your life who may or may not know what's happening in the Premier League this weekend or in the Championship. Everybody knows that Maradona's passed and the significance of the man. It's been a real week of mourning, isn't it, for everybody?
Yeah, that's true, actually. I think that it's interesting when these sort of things happen, whether it's a death or whether it's this explosion or a re-explosion of interest in an individual. It is interesting to see how that actually penetrates into different elements of society, as in how many, like, as you say yourself, non-football fans would have been that taken away by this story this week. And I think it probably has, I guess, taken a lot of people this week. A lot of people have become re-interested in Maradona, have had a look back in his career quite a bit over the last couple of days. It's no surprise, really. I think that when we kind of knew that this day was coming over the last couple of years, it was always a case that this is going to be like almost a renaissance of Maradona interest, and he's the perfect person to do a deep dive back into. It's almost like this has been the year of the deep dive back into nostalgia with for a number of reasons, whether it's a so-called 10-part Netflix documentary or whether it's just us been watching old games or whatever it's been. And I think there's probably a little bit of a similar thing going on with Maradona this year, that it's very in keeping with how people have consumed a lot of things in 2020. I think a lot of people have become very aware of their past in 2020 on so many different levels, and Maradona is just the latest element of this. I do think that there is a massive opportunity for somebody to make, as Ger said yesterday, the massive body of work on Maradona, whether it's the 15-part HBO series or whatever it may be, on his life over the next little while, to truly penetrate like all elements of society where you actually can't avoid it. Because I feel maybe with the Asif Kapadia documentary a couple of years ago, it was an art house piece. It was like one of the best documentaries you're ever likely to see. But if you're not a football fan, would you have necessarily been pushed towards it? I'm not so sure. I think with some of these characters, you almost need to have an unavoidable reason to look at them, a la The Last Dance this year. And I can't believe what date is this? November 27th, and it's still getting mentioned on this show.
It's right on. It's absolutely right and proper. I watched some of the him in Mexico documentary during lockdown, and my wife would definitely fit into the category of somebody who would be actively disinterested in sport, and she would have watched a lot of that. Like, he's such a charismatic, he draws you in. Like, you would have no intention to listen to what the guy has to say or to know very much about him, and then suddenly you realise that you're totally sucked in by the guy, and he got you in the palm of his hand. I haven't finished it, actually. I must go back and do that because it's such an interesting watch. I think the large part of the mourning is the mourning for the likes of codgers like me who are in mourning for their childhood as well, and at time almost as much as anything else. And I know that even the day before yesterday, I had stuck on the warm-up, the Life is Life warm-up for my 4-year-old, just to give him a bit of an idea of, he'd see a fair bit of sport going on in the house without necessarily always or ever sitting down to consume very much of it just yet. He's probably a bit too young to have that attention span. But I did feel an absolute urge to fire on YouTube and put the Life is Life Maradona clip on for him and show him what it was all about. And it was a struggle halfway through, and Paw Patrol was the other option, but I managed to keep him to the end anyway. I wasn't really sure, to be honest, how much of an impact it had on him. It was sort of after dinner, and it is that time where he's itching for Paw Patrol. So stuck it on, watched it all through. At the end, no great conversation about it. Paw Patrol was put on, and that was the end of that. And then we went out yesterday evening for a bit of a kick around the road. And obviously, I was demonstrating my skills on, as I always do, up and down the street here. And I was doing the keepy uppies with the head. To be fair, to be absolutely fair and true about it, I think I maybe did too. But anyway, I was doing that, and he turned around and he went, "Wow, that's what that guy was doing that you showed me on the TV yesterday." And I couldn't have been prouder. I was like, "Oh, this is great. Like, this is how you connect. This is how I've heard this stuff happens. How you connect with your son." And quick as a beat, he turns around and he goes, "Yeah, well, you're not as good as him." Which I thought was clearly just a truth, but also a fairly fantastic observation that he's not under any illusions about the skills or otherwise of his own man. The other point being that, as I said, not everybody's necessarily covered themselves in grace around this topic this week, and obviously one of those has been Peter Shilton, who has, I think he's chosen at the wrong time to say things that I think it's okay for him to believe in. Like the general tone of it is that Maradona was a cheat, right? Like that's the short story. He wrote an article in the Daily Mail this week and has been out and about in some of the British TV shows as well during the week to echo kind of that same point. And he's been judged pretty harshly for the tone of his language. And as I said, I have 100% agree with the poor timing of it. Like, I think at this time as people, the world mourns for the greatest footballer of all time, you show a little bit of grace this week and you talk about what a great player he was and what a joy it was to share the pitch, and you save your moaning about it for another time. But I think it's okay to feel that this guy wronged you. Like, Peter Shilton was probably the greatest player in England for the guts of 10 years, was like player of the year at times, played in World Cups, 125 caps for his country. It's okay for this guy to feel as if Maradona shafted him.
The timing is awful. There's no getting away from that. I do think that bridges need to have been built by now. If you're getting to the year 2020 and you still can't really get over something that happened in 1986, I'm not really sure what to say at this point. And I think it's been a bit of an insight into what life might have been like had Twitter been around in 1986 this week. It's not only the idea of how crazy and how the whole website would have exploded had the hand of God happened when Twitter was around, but also the granular detail into which Peter Shilton's performances at the 1986 World Cup and beyond have now been analysed this week, which is obviously very funny from our perspective, that there is this guy who puts out a tweet saying, "I thought this guy was a little bit of a cheat," and everybody's coming back to him with analysis of his penalty-saving performance or lack thereof against West Germany in a penalty shootout, and indeed his attempt to try and stop the goal of the century against Maradona later in that game in '86. And there's just been a bit of a deep dive done into Peter Shilton's goalkeeping career, which is amusing, I'm not going to lie, because once you engage in these terms, you leave yourself open to what's going to come back. You don't want to take on somebody like Maradona when he's alive, and then the day after he dies, to have that headline being pushed out. And I know it was very much the headline that got people wound up, but it seems that he certainly believed that. I think you're playing with fire immediately. You're saying that he's entitled to think what he thinks. Everybody's entitled to think what they think, of course they are, but I just wonder if there is at a universal level of pompousness about how the English view that. And you look through maybe some of the replies on social media to that Daily Mail article, you'll probably find as many English men and women who will agree with that sentiment as many non-English men and women or English people who actually disagree with that point of view. I think that there is a general sense of poison towards Maradona for what he did in 1986, and people really need to get over that. And the comparison and the parallel has been made this week with how will Irish people react to how will Irish people talk about the Thierry Henry handball, whatever it'll be, 34 years on from that. I think we obviously did a show 10 years on from it last year, and I think we actually look back and laugh at the hysterical reaction from the FAI on some fronts to that. I think we're already further along the lines of grieving our sense of injustice 10 years later than the English are grieving their injustice 34 years later. The English just don't have this capability of getting over things whatsoever. Every little thing that's ever been done against them is like should have been some sort of cause to fight World War III. They have the biggest victimization complex in the world, and I just don't understand it. Actually, I perfectly understand it. Like that sort of sense of English entitlement that you can't run around us. You can't dare cheat against us. Forget all the times we cheated. Forget all the things that maybe some of us in our personal lives cheated. You can't say a thing about us, or you can't dare try and bend the rules around us because we are the English. And I think that's sort of the sense that has grounded a lot of people up this week.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely more in the entitled bracket than it is the victimhood. But I think that there is also a difference between. I think that their injustice in terms of handball is far greater than ours. Like, given the dynamic of the game and where they were at versus us just trying to qualify for the tournament.
Disagree.
And I also think that your point might be right about completely. Like Joe. Your point might be right about Joe Bloggs, let's say, right? And Joe Bloggs should build a bridge and get over this thing all these years later. But like Peter Shilton specifically can continue to feel aggrieved about it for as long as he likes.
I think, well, just on that point of them feeling more entitled to be aggrieved to us, I disagree with that completely. Like, making a World Cup for Ireland, why are we talking, is as important as making the business end of a World Cup for England. That is the disparity between the quality of the sides and their history. Like, I mean, they're World Cup winners, Ireland or not. So I'm not sure about it. I don't think the English are more entitled to feel bound up about Maradona's handball than Ireland are about Thierry Henry's handball. But I think I'm over it. I'm not sure if you're over it. I think as a nation, we've definitely, as I say, made a lot of progress in, feeling okay about it. We kind of look back and laugh at it a little bit. Not so with a lot of the English people. And I don't know. I think Shilton needed to build a few bridges himself. And like, what has he been doing all these years? Has it been constant, hand wringing and kind of regretting what happened in 1986? There's surely a better way to live your life, and surely a better way to actually try and get over this than actually waiting for the moment for the man to die to air your dirty laundry once again.
Yeah, definitely. The timing of it is awful. There's no getting away from that. But I think that like English people remember him fondly for all the reasons that I mentioned a while ago, and the world only remembers him for one thing, and that's going to be his legacy. That's what's going to get mentioned on the day that he shuffles off this mortal coil as well. Right, here's what's coming up over the next while. By the way, you are watching OTB AM, just gone 20 to 8 on this Friday morning, and we're live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We've Mark Lawrenson upcoming in just a little bit. He's going to talk to us all things Maradona and Liverpool. We'll touch on United, maybe Chelsea in there as well. Paddy Stapleton will look ahead to the weekend's All-Ireland Hurling semi-finals and some really intriguing stuff to get into there. Hector Huckagon is going to join us on the line because he has been to the Bombonera and he's been to see Diego Maradona live in his days, the less hurled days at Seville. So we'll get Hector's thoughts on that in just a little bit. And then we'll have our GA picks. We'll get an update on where that league is at. I'm closing in on Will. I don't have many weeks to go, but I'm getting close to him. And we'll get that for you a little bit later in the show. We've Alan Quinlan to look ahead to the weekend's rugby and look back a little bit as well. Aidan O'Shea, the Mayo footballer, is going to join us to tell us exactly where Mayo are at in their season and obviously getting onto the business end of the football championship too. So delighted to have Aidan on the show a little bit later on today. A very special crappy quiz after that, and then John Giles to round out the show. So all that's coming up a little bit later on OTB AM. So stay tuned and keep watching and get your comments coming into us all over the course of the morning. Phil Egan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you doing?
How are you getting on?
Very well.
I don't know where you're starting, but I presume it must be in the Dundalk direction.
Yeah, well, do you know what? Before we get to Dundalk, we'll actually start with Maradona because he was actually buried in a private ceremony after a day of emotional scenes in Argentina. No surprise, there was obviously a massive turnout in Buenos Aires yesterday. Tens of thousands of mourners paid respect to the 1986 World Cup winning captain. The body of Maradona was on public display at the Presidential Palace in Buenos Aires. Now, it was meant to be there for 3 days, but such was the crowd, authorities eventually forced to stop public viewing of the coffin to keep the peace. So only family members and close friends were permitted to attend the ceremony and the burial of the footballing legend who sadly passed away at the age of 60 on Wednesday. On to Dundalk now, still without a point in Group B of the Europa League. They were beaten 3-1 by Rapid Vienna at the Aviva Stadium last night. Chris Shields scored a second-half penalty not long after Nathan Anua had missed from the spot. Arsenal have secured qualification from that group thanks to a 3-0 win away to Molde. Celtic boss Neil Lennon insists he's the right man to get the team back on track following their exit from the Europa League. Last night's 4-1 defeat away to Sparta Prague means they can't qualify for the last 32 of the competition. Lennon was already under serious pressure, considering that Celtic are 11 points behind Rangers in the Scottish Premiership now, albeit they do have 2 games in hand. But Lennon believes he can turn it around.
We've been here before and we put a great run together second half of the season. This feels a little bit different. It feels like we got a bit more work to do, but we're quite confident we will turn it around.
Elsewhere, last night, Tottenham hammered Ludogorets 4-0 at White Hart Lane. Carlos Vinicius scored twice. An injury-time goal from Jamie Vardy rescued a 3-3 draw for Leicester away to Braga. That point has now sealed Leicester's place in the last 32 of the competition. Rangers are almost there. They drew 2-2 at home to Benfica. One game in the Premier League tonight. It's Crystal Palace at home to Newcastle. That game kicks off at 8 o'clock. You mentioned Aidan O'Shea and Mayo. They obviously play Tipperary next weekend in the All-Ireland Senior Football semi-finals, and Tipperary will have Colin O'Riordan available for that game. The Sydney Swans have cleared O'Riordan to play in that match. He started last weekend's historic Munster final win over Cork. And news from Sligo last night, Tony McEntee is their new manager. He was handed a 3-year term.
Good stuff, Phil. Thanks, Willie, for all that. That's what's happening in the world of live sport at the minute. A bit of a look back and look ahead as well to what's coming up. It's gone at 7:45 on this Friday morning. Plenty still to come, but I'm delighted to say now that we're joined on the line by the Liverpool and Ireland legend, Mark Lawrenson. Good morning to you, Mark.
Good morning, guys.
We were just talking a little bit earlier about the passing of, obviously, the great man. You were, I don't believe, on the same page as him at any time, but obviously very much the same vintage, and would have watched this guy play a lot of football.
Yeah, I think he played at Lansdowne for Argentina in 1980. I'm pretty sure I broke my arm in the April of that year, and obviously I missed out. But I was saying to somebody the other day that I remember Phil Neal coming back from an international friendly, England, Argentina. It might even have been that summer, and he was just kind of waxing lyrical about this fellow Maradona. We didn't really know very much about him. He was still a teenager and stuff, and he just said, wow. He said he was absolutely untouchable. You couldn't get anywhere near him. And Gary Lineker always goes on about obviously the hand of God goal that everybody knows about. Excuse me. But he says that he said the pitch that they played on that day, I mean, if you watch it and see the footage, and we've all seen it again in the last couple of days, I mean, the pitch is rough anyway. But Gary Lineker said the turf had been completely relaid and it hadn't set. He said, so if you imagine that every time you ran on it, it actually felt like it moved underneath you. So if you then watch the second goal that he scored, bearing in mind that fact, it's like even better than it actually was, and it was already brilliant.
Yeah. It was an incredible goal when you get that context as well. We've been talking about Peter Shilton's comments. I don't know if you've seen them, and about whether, I mean, I think the timing of them are very poor as well. But I was making the point a bit earlier that maybe Peter Shilton, of all people in England, can feel as if, you know, in terms of building that bridge all these years later, like he can continue to feel aggrieved. Might have chose his timing a little bit better, though. Yeah. Well, he's obviously kept it bottled up all those years, and he's decided to let it out. But, you know, I think, listen, Thierry Henry, we could throw at him, couldn't we? So we've done it. I reckon we've got over that now, have we not? But maybe some of us haven't. But listen, he got away with it. I'm sure there's lots of centre-forward strikers who've scored with their hands over the years. Referee misses it, the referee misses it. So that's just the way that it is. But I think you've got to pick your moments if you're going to obviously go after people. Yeah, absolutely. And this is probably not the week for it. Let's talk about some of the football to look ahead to, Mark, over the course of the weekend. Liverpool to begin with. And like we've seen, obviously, what happened during the week, and maybe it's difficult to start to read too much into it, but the 9 games in 5 weeks and the squad rotation, obviously, that Klopp was doing at that point. Is it just a case that some of those players have yet to maybe mature into those positions to get up to the speed of that kind of level? Or is there anything deeper in what happened during the week that's given you pause for thought? No, I think, you know, I have to do these predictions every single week for the BBC, and I was kind of half expecting maybe just, you know, a draw against Leicester last weekend, maybe even get beat at Manchester City, only purely and simply because, you know, when you look at certainly the back four who started against Leicester on Sunday,
they'd never ever played together, and you kind of thought Jamie Vardy gets a couple of half chances, it could be a problem for Liverpool. So that would result for me was the best result of the season for Liverpool so far. So they're going to be highs, and there's going to be one or two lows. The manager knows that, but I don't expect. Obviously you've got Brighton at the weekend. I think with Brighton is they play out from the back. They haven't really got big centre forwards, big strikers that are going to obviously score goals in the air and put Liverpool under pressure. I think the only problem they'll have maybe be set pieces, because there is, apart from Matip, there's a lack of height in the back four, but they've just got to get on with it. But I think we're in strange times, as everybody knows, but I think we're in strange times in terms of the Premier League, and I do feel that come next kind of April, and God hope we might have fans back, but I think there'll be 4 or 5 teams with a chance of actually winning the league. But if you look at it, Liverpool obviously lost to Aston Villa and stuff, and generally they've been good so far. Manchester City can't score a goal at the moment. Tottenham all of a sudden have got very good, and really, as well as they played in terms of the result on Sunday against Man City, it was a bit anti-football, wasn't it? And I just think with Tottenham, if they don't score first against you, then I think they're a completely different team. So I just think that the league's going to be open, and Liverpool will have their ups and downs. And purely and simply, if you think about the last 2 years, the 2 seasons they've had where they've been absolutely brilliant in the league, it's very, very difficult to continue that. So. They'll win loads, they'll probably lose a few, and such is life, really.
Yeah, and a part of life at the minute. Actually, one of the sort of oddly positive things about the last 8 months has been our capacity to hear what's going on in the pitch at various points. And I know that Klopp during the week was picked up telling the team to just start playing football. One of the other things has been Jordan Henderson, when he was fit before the last number of weeks, was how he cajoles and encourages his teammates around the pitch has been absolutely phenomenal. He could be back. It looks as though he'll be back for the Brighton game potentially tomorrow. How badly do they need him back now to resettle the ship a little bit?
Well, if you factor in as well, no Van Dijk, and I don't just mean Van Dijk from a playing point of view. I mean, obviously, the fact that, he organised the back four. Van Dijk, he organised everybody around him and obviously influenced the team in all sorts of different areas. They don't have that. I think Joel Matip is he's a good player, Joel Matip, but I think he's not a talker. So, Fabinho alongside him is not a talker. So it's even more prevalent now for Henderson to take over in terms of the captain's role again. And I think a little bit as well, I think that's why Milner played against Leicester City at the weekend, A, for the experience, but also for the fact that, he's got 1 or 2 players alongside him who haven't played in those positions, and he was also trying to talk them through it. And the more the merrier, basically. But the thing about it, especially if you're a Henderson, you probably say 50% of the game is facing the play, so we can see what's happening. So for him, it's not only is it a really important position from a playing point of view, but also from an organisational point of view as well.
Let's talk about Chelsea against Tottenham at the weekend, Mark. It feels as if this is one of the most important games of the season so far, if not the most important season, because I guess you got the sense with Liverpool against Manchester City recently that either team could bounce back from a win. But it really feels that if Chelsea or Spurs, if there is to be a winner in this game, it will really rubber stamp them as title contenders this season. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're looking at it and we're thinking, OK, Spurs fantastically organised defensively, and they've got Kane and Son, who are absolutely brilliant at the moment. And Chelsea, who are, the Ziyech fella and the 2 German boys as well, they're on fire, they're lively, they're quick, they're direct, they're scoring goals. Chelsea aren't great at the back. It's kind of, you look at it, and I think you're absolutely right. If one of the teams wins, they're probably suddenly starting to think to themselves, we have now got a real chance in terms of this league, in terms, to look forward, etc. But it's an interesting one, because you always feel with Jose, because it's Frank Lampard and because he had him for so long, you always feel with Jose that he will try and get one over on Lampard, whether it's the team that he selects, or whether that he makes 1 or 2 subtle changes and does something that Chelsea don't really expect Tottenham to do. So that'll be interesting. Excuse me, but I still think with Chelsea that they've got a defence that will concede goals. And when push comes to shove, I think that's the great worry. And with Tottenham as well, yes, they've done extremely well. Yes, we know it's Mourinho. We know what he can do. But, you lose Harry Kane out of that side, and they're nothing like, they're probably 25-30% down. And you never want somebody to get injured. But Harry Kane seems to get injured every single year, where he's out for 4, 5, 6 weeks. And I think that would really hurt Tottenham. But interesting game, certainly. And there's a little bit, I think, they don't like each other, which I always like watching games where the two teams don't like each other, because there's just a little bit more of an edge to the match.
It's interesting that you mentioned Chelsea's defence there. I was under the impression that they've got a lot better. They've conceded only 1 goal in the last 4 games, I think, in the Premier League. You still obviously have concerns about how long that can last. Well,
against the top teams, excuse me. So, the Sheffield United and the Newcastles of this world, they're obviously Premier League teams, but when you look at them, Chelsea completely unhinged Sheffield United, and Sheffield United didn't really kind of throw a punch at them that day at Stamford Bridge, and Newcastle was so kind of negative as well. I think it was last Saturday lunchtime, wasn't it? So, teams haven't really put Chelsea under pressure. You could argue that because Chelsea have been so good going forward that the ball's generally been in the opposition half, but you just know when they play the top teams. I mean, that's why the fixture's so interesting, because if Tottenham come and play well, and then we'll have a much better idea that if Chelsea actually going forward can be good or better defensively.
Have you seen anything new from Jose Mourinho, the man or the manager of the season, to suggest that actually when things tend to go stale for him at previous clubs, that actually he is going to avoid that for quite some time here in his current gig?
You never know with Jose, because we know it's never his fault. He never picks the wrong team. He never makes the wrong substitutions, and it's always the referee or whatever. But listen, that's the way that he operates. And there's one thing about Jose. He's privately actually he's a completely different character, and it's probably some stuff that the majority of people don't know about or don't even see. I just think with Tottenham, yeah, they're a good side. Are they as good as Liverpool on the day? Are they as good as Man City on the day? And I would say no. But I would think, that they're certainly better than Manchester United at the moment. They're probably, for me, the third best team in the league. Now, don't forget, I don't know how many years ago it was, and it feels like an eternity. Leicester City won the league when nobody thought that they could. Well, certainly nobody thought that they could up until about January, February. So, they've very much got a chance, Tottenham, but I'm kind of waiting a little bit to say that they can actually win it, because just the Kane problem. If he plays all the season, I think they've got a good chance. But if he misses a chunk, which he has done consistently every single season, then I don't think they have a chance.
And it's a very tough run of fixtures as well, Mark, that if they manage to get to the other side of Christmas and still be in this position, they're in a really good chance as well with a fully fit squad, if that's how they're going to be set up. Yeah, just on Manchester United then, a sort of half Jose question, half Manchester United question. Is Jose's current form at Spurs a little bit of vindication for, complaining about everybody but himself at Manchester United, that perhaps the structures at the club and the players that he had at Manchester United, maybe Jose was right all along, that maybe he didn't have the best opportunity to take Manchester United back to a title-winning level?
Yeah, I think he's got an argument. Also, I saw this. I'm not a big person on stats, and it doesn't keep me up at night reading them. But I saw the stats the other day. Since Fergie obviously finished in his job, Man United have spent £1 billion on players, which, when you think about it, is absolutely mad. And you may or may not know, but David Moyes is one of my best friends, and I mean, he's got all sorts of stories from his time there. But I think one thing about Manchester United, and obviously people put Ole Gunnar Solskjaer under speculation every single time he loses a game or draws a game, but it's the problem for me is Edward Woodward, who was obviously on the books at Man United, and he did basically got all the sponsorship in, made loads of money for the American owners, and they absolutely love him. And then he sort of got the job in terms of being in charge of the football side, in terms of transfers. in and out, not so much selecting them, but doing the negotiations, etc. I think that's where Manchester United's problem is, and I don't understand why somebody, at the club doesn't say, well, hold on, let's put Edward Woodward back in the job that he did and did it very, very well, and let's actually get in a director of football, whatever particular title you want to call somebody who has kind of full reign in terms of, helping the manager, finding in players all across Europe, all across the world. And I think that's the problem with Manchester United. I really do think that in the transfer window, they've been kind of reactive, and they've reacted to things. And I mean, look at all that stuff about Jordan Sancho in the summer, and we kept hearing that, Manchester United have agreed a deal with the player himself, which actually means they've agreed a deal with his agent. But they've never agreed a deal with the club. And the club are sat there laughing, thinking, really? So he's going to Man United, is he? Well, nobody's rung us. And straight away, if you then try to negotiate with Dortmund say, well, hold on, you've been saying you've agreed, all the money with Jordan Sancho to come to Man United. He doesn't go without our permission. Consequently, we want another 20 million now. So that's the kind of problem that they're having. And Manchester United had a guy called David Gill. You probably remember when Fergie was there, and that was his job, and he was brilliant at it. Absolutely outstanding. And you just heard about Manchester United sign a player on the day that he signed the player. You didn't or hear all this speculation in the newspaper day in, day out. And I think that in many ways is their biggest problem, and will remain to be so. It's kind of, we need a new player, let's go and buy whoever. And there just doesn't seem to be any great strategy. There doesn't seem to be, okay, now where do we want to be in 12 months? Where do we want to be in 24 months? And where do we want to be in 3 years? So they've been a little bit looking at players who've come through the system, Greenwood, Rashford, etc. So I just think with Manchester United, I think this is just going to go on and on. This is, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer loses a couple of games and everyone's saying, he gets sacked next week, and then he wins a couple and he's fine. But that should not be the way that Manchester United operate.
Can I ask you about on-field strategy then? Because it looked against Istanbul Basaksehir here that they'd stumbled upon something here with Van de Beek and Fernandes playing, but also with Cavani, Rashford, Martial starting as well, an attacking lineup. But it looked good, Mark. Do you stick with that now for the next few weeks?
Well, yeah. Why wouldn't you? Because the problem is, they keep changing the team every week, and all these former managers, and I mean, obviously I go back to Shankly because, I never played for him, but, every time at Liverpool when somebody would say to him, what's the team at the weekend, he'd say, I picked my best team. I picked my best team in every single game. And the reason he did that was because he said, if you lose, then you're thinking, maybe I've got a problem. Maybe in that best team I've got one or two things wrong over players. He said, but if you play a team where you leave a couple of your best players out and you lose, why would you do that? And I'm a bit like that with Manchester United, which is, they win a game and very, very occasionally he will keep the same team. And, lots of managers now we have this thing with the 5 subs and one thing and another, and the centre players, get tired and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but everybody's players get tired. Basically, I can't tell Solskjaer how we should go about his job, but I would have thought, pick your best team every week. And, if it doesn't work, you can change 3 anyway in the game. And I just think that's their biggest problem. And I know it's difficult because it's Manchester United, one of the world's most famous clubs, etc., and they are expected to win this, win that, win whatever. But I think, as we know, when we look at it, it goes almost from one week to the next. Is he getting sacked? Is he staying? He's a lovely, lovely bloke, but you just deal with him. It's also a little bit of kind of, he doesn't get any help from upstairs for me. He might get help saying, here's another 50 million, go and buy somebody, but there's no master plan. I think therein lies the problem.
Yeah. All right, Laura. Thanks a million. Enjoy the football over the weekend.
Will do.
Thanks a lot. 4 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning. We've got an absolutely packed show coming up for you, including over the course of the next hour. We're going to talk with the Mayo footballer Aidan O'Shea. That's at 9 o'clock. We're going to talk rugby with Alan Quinlan very shortly. Diego Maradona chat with Hector coming up a little bit later. And we're back talking hurling with Paddy Stapleton after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB.
Paul Barrett sending off, was that a turning point for you, Tommy? Would you believe? I didn't know he was sent off until I see it. There's a good few WhatsApps coming in. The fashion icons, all the lads in Muckley and Galmoy and O'Loughlin's, they were talking about, I didn't know what they were talking about, the class of 95 Mayo and Tullaroan teammates and one or two Ballycallan lads there as well. They were in it, so I had to put it in. Was Cathal Barra sent off? Quick.
OTB live commentary. Never miss the action right here on OTB Sports Radio. Looking for a football show with a bit of a twist?
Ferguson has a knack for seeing Mount quick and, kind of creative genius and sort of letting it flow.
Team 33, the football magazine show for the football purists. The very best interviews with the cult heroes of the past and a look at the cultural side of football. Team 33, live at 9 p.m. every Friday on OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's move.
Yeah, it's 8:05. Another stacked weekend of sport ahead, and hurling amongst it, obviously, which is where we're going to turn to right now. And Paddy Stapleton is going to join us in just a moment. But in the last few days, we caught up with Tony Kelly about his winter of hurling. Really interesting chat with the lads during the week, and the Waterford star Stephen Bennett as well. And you can find both of those podcasts in the OTB GA stream, or indeed on the OTB Sports app, and you can download that from whatever store it is that you so desire. You'll see Tommy Welsh and Jamesy O'Connor there looking ahead to the weekend as well. And here's Tommy, a quick clip from him on a ruthless mantra that he was taught when he was in school.
We had an old school teacher, Joe, in St. Kieran's College, Pat Murphy. I don't know, James, would you have come across him with Flannan's, but Pat Murphy was a great hurling man from St. Mullins, taught in St. Kieran's when I was there. And he reckoned that you'd have to go for 5 goals maybe to get 2, but you have to go for them. If you don't go for them, you won't get them. And goals win matches. I remember I think he was over one of the St. Mullins' team one day. I don't know if it was an underage team or that, Joe, but at half time he said he started getting embarrassed. I think they scored 9 goals and no points. he had to tell him at half time, lads, you just started taking a few points anyway.
And Tommy, did Cody preach goals? Was he would he talk about goals? Would he talk about going for it, Cody, or was it just instinctive to the players he had?
It kind of a bit of both. Like, the chance was on, but there was one funny one time. He I think we were trying to force these goals one time, and Ryan said, "Right, lads, go for your pints now." He said, "Sunday, if the chance comes on, just take your pints," because we were in a bit of a lull and we were trying to force it. But DJ was on the team that time. He said, "Well, if I get the ball, I'm going for goal."
He's allowed.
He's allowed, and Cody didn't say that to him because he respected. Listen, he knows more than any of the rest of us. But no, he definitely left it up to you. But
right,
it was in your heads because of the lads around you more so than anything else.
Yes, I hear what you mean.
And Joe, take it from me, right? When DJ got a goal, it was worth a lot more to them than the 3 points that were up in the scoreboard.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, very few people, I'd say, who could argue with Cody, DJ amongst them, and Tommy himself, definitely from everything you hear, also among that group. Paddy Stapleton, good morning to you.
How you doing, Adrian?
Flying, and thanks. Really looking forward to these games now at the weekend. So we're going to kick off with the game at Croker tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock, Kilkenny up against Waterford. I know when we were chatting to you a couple of weeks ago, you were talking about how much of a fan of Liam Cahill you are, and you were proved right, obviously. Is it also, though, a case from a Waterford point of view almost that they're in bonus territory, Paddy, that like they haven't necessarily beaten any of the serious All-Ireland contenders, and even though Kilkenny are a bit of a work in progress themselves, that they'll have enough old foxes on the pitch to see off Waterford?
I wouldn't think so. I honestly wouldn't. And most of the time, if you ask the Waterford player, maybe if it was another year, they'd say, oh no, but they really would be in bonus territory. I really don't think they are. I wouldn't say Liam Cahill ever thinks like that. I can see the way they're playing. They know that this is, it's time to strike while the iron's hot. They haven't won an All-Ireland since it's a 59. Or no, sorry, more than that actually. But so, no, I think they know this is their shot at history. Limerick are obviously that team that look a little bit ahead of everybody, but I don't think they're intimidated by any of the other teams. I actually don't think they feel any other team can beat them. I think they're coming into this match against Kilkenny, which sounds ridiculous, but in a very confident mood. And actually, they only have Liam Cahill with them a few months, but they actually seem a way more settled system, a way more settled team than Kilkenny do, even though Kilkenny won the Leinster final. So I'd say Waterford see this as a real chance, because on the off chance, Galway, Limerick, the other side, it could actually be very tight. So if depending on what way that goes, I'd say Waterford see it as a huge chance.
What was your record like against Kilkenny?
My record was up and down now, to be honest with you. Obviously, we won in 2010, but bookended then in 9 and 11 with losses, and the 11 one kind of stung because it's one of those where I'd say we were a little bit soft coming in that year. We just hadn't been properly tested. Maybe the semi-final when we hammered Waterford in 11 in the Munster final. I'd say some of you might remember our Carver got 4 goals, but that softened us out, I thought, for the year. But apart from that, they beat us more than we beat them, unfortunately. But you just have to roll with that one.
Yeah, the reason I ask is the jersey factor, right? Like, people often talk about this, the black and as soon as players see the black and amber, they're already beaten, or there's like a significant sort of, it has an impact. Was that a thing for you when you played them?
I don't think so. I think I'd say when Liam came in first, Kilkenny were probably beating Tip a lot in league games, and we didn't get that far in the championship. But after that, we suffered one bad beating in a league game in 09. That probably met us. It brought us to the level of intensity because we actually were such a fright that day in the first half in Nolan Park. But certainly wasn't it. I think, if anything, it made us better. Now I just think a lot of those close games, if you think about a lot of our leaders, apart from, we had Lara and Eoin, we're a bit older than that, but our real young players, Brendan Maher, Paddy Maher, like they were 20, 21, 22, playing these guys who were at the peak of their powers, who were generational greats or all-time greats. So I think at the time they just had that little more know-how, a little more experience. And when it comes down to the last 10 minutes of game and it's close, that's where it's won and lost.
Yeah. And like when you talk about that Waterford settled system versus what's going on with Kilkenny, and there's obviously he's quietly bubbling away, and you are a players there, Brian Cody. How do both of those then stack up tomorrow night?
I think it's unbelievably interesting. I think number one, the two managers themselves, like I really see this as, I think Liam Cahill, you don't disrespect Brian Cody what he's won, but mentality wise is probably the closest we've seen to Brian Cody in the modern era, and we all felt, well, you can't have another Cody because that doggedness. A lot of the former players have come out and say how tough he is and how distant he is. So I think that's fascinating on its own. two real tough men. I think the fact that Waterford run the ball a lot. We talked about Kieran Bennett in the middle of the field, Ty DeBorca, Calum Lyons, Bennett. They run the ball. They seem to take like that extra, maybe we give out to a young lad for doing it, taking an extra 3-4 steps with the ball, having a little look up, but it's all to draw out the other defenders and maybe make a good ball for Hutchinson inside. So Kilkenny usually don't deal unbelievably well with that. And in fairness, they don't deal brilliantly with tactics in general. So I see Waterford have a slight edge in that way. And if you look at the full back line for Kilkenny, it's pretty inexperienced. If you have Tommy Walsh in there, Hugh Lawler obviously had a good season last year, but they're not, Conor Delaney had played league last year but hadn't really played too much championship. So it is, if ball goes in good the way the Waterford guys wanted, then it is advantage Kilkenny. But the only other thing I see on the other side is you have two, you have TJ Reid and you have Colin Fennelly, and they can break any code really in certain matches. And the interesting thing for me is TJ Reid, will they put him on Ty DeBorca centre forward and really mess up what Waterford want to do because he's such a linchpin, or will they put him in corner forward? Like that's the two spots I see it. Will they put him corner forward on either Kenny or McNulty? And they're really inexperienced. Like the typical Cody thing, put Shefflin in on the inexperienced corner forward. They have two. So you have a problem there. Will he disrupt the centre forward position and DeBorca, or will he really try and hammer in on them cornerbacks?
That's a really interesting dilemma. So what would you do if you were Brian Cody, and what benefit would putting Reid on Ty DeBorca have for a team?
Well, putting him on Ty DeBorca means you either hope Ty DeBorca can do both jobs. Like you saw the last day when Tony Kelly started centre forward, that there was a vacated hole there. And like Kilkenny like nothing more than a vacated hole in the middle of the defence, and Fennelly is the one inside it. So that's a really, really tough problem. I would definitely use him at different positions. I definitely maybe even start him centre, try and get a good start for Kilkenny, try and get Ty DeBorca out of his rhythm. But I'd certainly have him in corner forward at some stage, because as good as the defenders are, they're young. Maybe not babies, but in terms of inter-county hurling, they're very, very young. and he's so tricky, TJ Reid. Just even in the air, if they just hit a few high balls in, he's unbelievably tricky. He's long. He's able to use his body. So they have a real dilemma. Maybe Callum Lyons will come and mark him everywhere. But that presents its own problems. Do they have to play with a sweeper then as Tadhg de Burka? And does that mean less ability to work hard up in the forward line? So I find it extremely interesting.
Have you marked TJ?
Yeah. I even marked him the club championship this year. He's unbelievable. And that's the word for me, tricky, because he's not the fastest. He's pretty strong, but he's not Johnny Glynn, he's not that type of strength, but he's tough, but the skill is tough. But look, I prefer marking him as a cornerback, fullback than I would in the half forward line. When he's played against us half forward, he moves so well. The ball is pucked down on the other area, and he just swoops in around, little looping around. And look, when he gets it, I think you're in real trouble. And I suppose I realised that when I marked him in the club championship. So I wasn't really trying to hurl the ball now, I must admit.
Is that the same advice you'd give to Waterford this weekend? Don't hurl the ball.
I think if you could, against TJ Reid, even Fenley is such a game breaker, but TJ Reid, look, just keep him out of the game, and let the other 5 backs worry about hitting the ball and supplying the forward line. I think if TJ Reid and Colin Fenley, if they don't hurl well, if you limit them, then Kilkenny will find it very, very hard to win. But I do think, not changing it too much, but Prunty against Fenley didn't have a good game the last day. He won like that. And Prunty didn't have a great game the last day. And I think it's a similar challenge as this time, where a man like Fenley is so strong, probably one of the strongest lads I've ever come up against. And now Prunty has to try and learn from last week, where he realises he's not always the strongest dog in the fight, and balk and limit Fenley, or he'll go out and maybe make a couple of the same mistakes, which is trying to outstrength him. And that to me is very interesting as well.
Yeah, and Waterford do seem to be hurling a bit more than they maybe had in previous years as well, so it'll be interesting to see how all that pans out. Over to Sunday, Paddy, Limerick against Galway. You mentioned there in a sort of offhand way maybe about Johnny Glynn, but we've spoken before about the physicality of this Limerick team. Are Galway the best matched team in the country then to take them on physically?
They should be. They worked hard the last day against Tipperary, but Tipperary still got plenty of ball off and plenty of ball through the hands, and I don't think this was the best version of Tip that could have been there this year. So I would have thought so. But now they're 3 weeks into their schedule, it's going to be a tough day for them. If you look at it, Limerick are probably that bit fresher in terms of years anyway, and now we have 3 weeks of action on top of that. So my look at this is if Galway don't get off to a very, very smart start, it could actually be a long day for them, because there's only so much you can do with the best will in the world. But if the body and the head is telling you you're tired, then you could be under pressure. And I know people say, well, it's not Ireland semi-final. Unfortunately, the body doesn't know that, and they need a quick start. Limerick are so slick, and I just see it. If Galway could come out with a real, hunger after 2017 All-Ireland, but it's going to be tough for them after that few weeks.
Where are the weaknesses in that Limerick team?
Jeez, that's a fair one. I suppose we've all tried to talk where are the weaknesses. I suppose one thing I noted is they don't really look to man mark. They really trust their system, a la kind of a Dublin football type thing, where they feel if they go out and hurl that there's no one beat them, and I think they're not too far off the mark. But I do feel like Galway have the type of player that would enjoy if it was hurling against hurling. Like Joe Canning doesn't really want to be man marked. He wants to let his skills show, and he's not extremely fast, so it could be man marked. Carl Mannion around the middle of the field doesn't want a lad trailing him all day, and they can all shoot. So I see that as a little bit of a weakness. If Galway can get on top, if they can overarm like Kilkenny did last year, but unfortunately for Galway, Limerick have that experience. The only other one thing they have is, as I talked to you before, Seamus Flanagan doesn't really start. I thought he was good when he came on the last day, and if they get in a bind, they don't really have that high option. Yes, Gillette, but against Dahi Burke, I don't see him maybe catching ball or winning ball as easily as he has other days. So there are a couple of chinks, but you're kind of you're still reaching.
Yeah, and in terms of the dynamic between the two teams, obviously people remember the game a couple of years ago like a bit of a mad game, but certainly a bit of a mad finish anyway. Is there just so much water under the bridge between now and then? And like Galway, you've mentioned before, they're playing a different game, they're under new management, like that there isn't much to look at in terms of that game, in terms of what we can expect now at the weekend?
Yeah, I'd say there's not too much, to be honest. Like that day, Limerick were probably a 10-point better team, and they won by a point barely at the end. They rely on Joe Canning missing a score. But I think their confidence has grown exponentially since then. I think they're so sure of what they're doing. Even a couple of the matches that year, they were definitely in danger of being caught in the semi-final. So since that, they've really kicked on. Bar that, they'll be crushed by that All-Ireland semi-final last year. They know they had a chance to go back-to-back. So I don't see them letting up for a second. And they probably see maybe a wounded animal in Galway, a couple of weeks on the road, new management. They are vulnerable, I think, Galway. So Limerick, I think they have a good mentality, and I think they'll see that. So I don't think they're going to be, held up over a couple of years ago. Maybe Galway might see it as something. It might be a way for the management, for Shane O'Neill, to get Galway really focused in this week and to get that good start. Like, people just think you automatically come out in the championship match and you are so motivated that you'll have that start, and sometimes they're not. You need a little prod, especially after a couple of weeks. So I think maybe Shane O'Neill, they might be able to use it. But as I say, they need to get that really fast, energetic, strong start, intense start. And if they do, look, then they have a chance. But if they don't get that, they're in serious trouble, I think.
Sounds like you're going for Limerick.
I am going, and I do. And I was saying why. Overall, I do think they're the better team. I'm sure most people do. I really do. And then you add on top of that they've a couple of weeks rest, only 2 weeks, but they're still in the groove. So I would have to go with Limerick. I think most people would.
And on the other side, which way?
The other side, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go with the form team, and even though the Leinster champions, it's hard to back against them. I just think that Waterford are on that momentum. They have that momentum. It's so hard to break in sport, especially hurling, when you have to be in a rhythm to get breaks of balls, when everyone has to work in a chain to work so hard. And I think Waterford just had that groove. It's like a groove, and Cal has them in it. But I really think, and I think they see this as their chance, because they didn't win the Munster final. Maybe if they had won the Munster final, they'd be a little bit soft going into this. But that's been able to be held over them. So I'm certainly going to go for Waterford, even though it's hard to back against some of the Kilkenny players. But I just will on this occasion.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, listen, they're a cracking couple of games, and I'm really looking forward to them. We'll catch up with you hopefully again. They're not too distant. Thanks, Millie, Paddy.
Cheers, guys. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Paddy Stapleton on the line there to look ahead to the weekend's hurling semi-finals. A couple of crackers tomorrow and again on Sunday as well. Right, we've plenty more to come for you over the course of the morning. Alan Quinlan's going to be along later on to talk rugby. We're going to talk to Aidan O'Shea, the Mayo footballer, and a very special piece with Hector as well coming down the track very shortly. But first of all, we'll take a look at the back pages.
OTB AM.
We will start with OTBSports.com. You can see Neil Lennon will tarnish Celtic's 10-in-a-row dream. Opinion piece up on OTBSports.com for you this morning. That's obviously in foot of their defeat last night. And we didn't deserve to lose 4-1. Lennon reacts to Prague mauling there. That's more reaction to that game last night. Plenty more up there as well. Colin O'Riordan cleared to play for Tip against Mayo. We might get Aidan O'Shea's thoughts on that a bit later on. John Giles' thoughts on the passing Maradona. And Sligo appointing Tony McEntee is the other story up on OTBSports.com. So you can check out all of that good stuff up there. Across the back pages for you this morning on the Irish Examiner, Kilkenny caught between two shores. An interesting and very well written piece from PM O'Sullivan there on the Kilkenny Waterford game this weekend. Cody is very good at making you feel invincible. Also, thoughts from a couple of former of Kilkenny charges there. In the Daily Telegraph, Wink strikes at Lucky Tottenham's 4-0 win over Ludogorets. Manager slams fan return as unfair. This is Marco Bielsa and Steve Bruce, who've been out to say that the bigger teams in the Premier League getting a bit of an advantage by having fans into stadiums, whereas some of the lesser lights will have to they'll have to wait. The Irish Sun, rapid fire, bad start, hits Dundalk hard. That's the defeat last night at Rapid Vienna. And tears from Maradona also there. Duncan Wright has some further reaction to Maradona's passing. Lost boys, writes Craig Swan after Celtic's defeat last night. Vienna that got away. Mark McCadden on the 3-1 defeat for Dundalk, and Marcelo Bielsa is also quoted there on the back page, as he is on the Mirror this morning. It'll all end in tears, Bielsa. It's only fair if it's all fans allowed or no fans allowed, he says there, and the sad farewell from Maradona. The Guardian for you this morning, just the ticket, Arsenal the first to welcome back fans, but many face a wait, is more reaction on that story. And Maradona, the footballer, had no flaws, but the man was a victim. And it's an article from Jorge Valdano that I highly recommend that you go and seek out, because it's a brilliantly written and well-reflected piece from somebody who soldiered alongside Diego Maradona in the dressing room, played alongside him in his years at Argentina, and I think maybe briefly at club level as well. But it's a brilliantly thoughtful and extremely well-written piece by Jorge Valdano there. In the Times, United fears over crippling cyber attack. This is Manchester United still haven't overcome the cyber attack that went deep into their system. I think it was the guts of a week ago, and still struggling to get grips with that. And a brilliant picture of an artist, a mural from Diego Maradona as well, in a tribute to him. Elsewhere, that's the Times London edition. The Irish Daily Mail for you this morning. Hackers holding United to ransom. Tony Kelly says no disputing validity of All-Ireland glory, despite the fact that it's we're in COVID years, obviously. The Hurled boys in a mess. And also GA plan for 2021 season revealed by its Cullen Keys here. The inter-county season will run from the end of February, he says, with the leagues resuming until the third week in July, when the All-Ireland football final will be played a week after the hurling decider. So that's the new schedule for the year ahead. Same in the Independent. And Farrell, our courage got in the way of our calmness against England, as Andy Farrell continues to reflect on events against England, and obviously looking ahead to the game against Georgia as well this weekend. We'll have more reflections on that with Alan Quinlan indeed very shortly as well. So that's where we're at. Now it is 26 minutes past 8, and as I said, we've plenty to come. We've Alan Quinlan joining us a little bit later to talk about the rugby. Aidan O'Shea is going to join us on the line as well. We're going to have our GA quick picks. We've John Giles coming a little bit later as well, and plenty more for you as well besides. But as I said, 26 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning. Now, mourning Maradona over the last little while has, for many, felt a little bit like almost mourning football itself, or mourning a time for football, or maybe an innocence for football, and for ourselves, and an advanced mourning maybe as well for the conversations of who's going to be remembered 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now. John Lennon, Nelson Mandela, Rosa Parks, Diego Armando Maradona will sit in that list for sure. And when another 1,000 legends have played and lived and partied and done great things on the pitch, they'll wonder what it was like to roam the planet at the same time as this man, or better still, to have seen him live. And someone who's done both of those things, I'm delighted to say, joins us on the line now. Hector Huckagon, good morning to you, Hector.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. We're delighted to have you on. I suddenly realised during the week that you've been in the sphere of this great man in a couple of different guises. Do you want to kick us off with the Bombonera to begin with?
Yeah, what a name for a stadium, La Bombonera, the chocolate box. I mean, I'm very lucky that when I get to travel the world, as I've done for TG Carr for a long time, when we go to a city, we always look at, can we get close to the football team? Can we get close to a training session? And, you know, when you're going off for 3 months to South America for TG Carr, and you know you're going to Argentina, you know you're going to Buenos Aires, you have to go to see Boca Juniors. And luckily I was able to do that in 2002, where I joined a training session with the boys in the training pitches close to the stadium. And it was just the area of La Boca, to be driving into an area like La Boca. People say it's working class and it's rough and it's this and it's that. It's a colourful part of Buenos Aires, but they eat, sleep and drink football down there. I got to visit the stadium, walk along the pitch. I cracked a couple of balls into the goals. I saw the balcon where Diego has his area for his family, and it's just one of those great football stadiums, steeped in history, steeped in a very passionate, colourful part of Buenos Aires, and it was an absolute honour to be there.
Yeah, it's like the La Boca is like a Dulux ad, right? Like it's like sort of a giant dollop of brightly coloured paint gets dropped everywhere. And there's a lad who goes around, I was there a few years ago, and a lad who goes around who's a Maradona lookalike until you get up close and suddenly you realise, not so much.
The funny thing was, when I was there was a League Cup match They were against the second or third division. It was a midweek game. But La Corralito happened, where the World Bank had just shut up shop. Argentina has had many, many recessions, many economic crises. But the Corralito, they called it. The banks had closed everything. The cash machines had stopped giving out money. So the people of Buenos Aires and Argentina were knocking on the doors of banks. There were corrugated iron outside the bank links and all the pass machines, and they couldn't get their money. The price of medicine had gone through the roof. So this was the Argentinian people in turmoil, and that was the week we were in Buenos Aires. It wasn't a nice time to be there. We felt guilty flying in and flying out again because they were in dire straits. And the interesting thing of when I went to La Bombonera to see Boca Juniors play, they didn't ask for money for tickets. It was they were going through such a bad area and a crisis in the city that we offered food donations going through the turnstiles. So that afternoon, on camera, I went and bought a massive box with about 50 packets of spaghetti and rice and sugar. And we got to the turnstiles of Boca Juniors, and there was a donation point. So all the food collected on that day for that match, all the donations were going back into La Boca because, as you say, Buenos Aires was in crisis and Argentina was in crisis. And it's funny, lads, we're going to see the images over the next couple of days that this morning, this outcry of passion and sadness is just going to get bigger and bigger. I mean, you're talking 15, 16 million followers of Boca Juniors, members in Argentina alone. Maradona was life down there. He was the man that gave them testosterone. He was the man that gave them their passion. And now we all know when we see the Argentinian fans in stadiums around the world, it doesn't matter if they're down in New Zealand with a pocket of 100 and playing the All Blacks. They're the noisiest, most passionate, blooded fans. And I stood on La Trece, which is the hardcore terrace of La Boca. And even though I speak the language and I speak Spanish fluently, they knew I wasn't from down there, obviously with the red hair and the jersey, but it's hard to describe. We know Man United and we know Liverpool and we know what soccer means to us here, and especially across the water, but it's a different level down there.
There are plenty of Irish names in the Argentinian phone book. I'm not sure O'Huckagan is one of them, mind you, Hector, but might have to have a read it back into that one. Come here, anybody who's listened to your absolutely brilliant podcast, which I am at the minute from my daily walk, and getting a lot of looks as to why I'm laughing away to myself as I'm tripping around the local park here, Tommy and Hector with Larita. It's absolutely fantastic. Listen, and they'll get a good insight into your time in Spain as well. And was it at that time that you went to see him? You've actually seen this guy play live in the time that's not talked that much about, Hector, at Seville.
You're right. There's an interest if you read about it. 92, 93, the season in Sevilla, Maradona, the lost season at Sevilla, when he was in that transition from coming from Napoli, and everything was gone. It was gone. His world was upside down with the partying, with everything. Who wanted him? Who didn't want him? And then he came to Sevilla. I was living in Bilbao in 92, 93, 94, and the news had broken. This was a golden era of Spanish football, because I was going regularly to San Mamés, to the old La Catedral in Bilbao, to see the likes of Stoichkov, Romario, Begiristain, Baquero, the captain of Barcelona at the time. You had all those brilliant players, the Laudrups and the boys down in Madrid. And then all of a sudden, Maradona signs for Sevilla. So I think it was in October that year, I went to San Mamés, lucky enough, got a ticket and saw him playing. Couldn't believe the size of him from a distance. And then the touches, the little deft touches that he had. But they call it the lost season of Maradona, where he spent about 9 months with Sevilla. Started off really well. I think he scored a penalty against Zaragoza in the fourth game. But Carlos Villardo, the Argentinian manager at the World Cup, brought him to Sevilla. But it's almost like the lost year of Diego Maradona, because after that he said goodbye to Europe and then he returned home. But I'm just trying to think, lads, of this monumental loss for football. I mean, Ronaldo and Messi and Pele and Georgie Best, yes, all icons, and the two boys are icons of the present game. But every time Maradona left a hotel, every time you saw him at a match, every time he did anything, it was just, he injected the world of football with pizzazz and testosterone and passion and everything. I don't think we'll ever see the like of it again. And it's quite moving when people should watch the scenes in Buenos Aires at 3 days of mourning over the next few days. This is an incredible loss to football, and it will be it will be mourned for a long, long time to come. And I don't think we'll ever see the likes of Diego Maradona again. He was, to me, the greatest footballer in the world. But I suppose because I speak the language and I've been to these countries that you realise how much he meant to these people. And the Argentinian people have lost their greatest son.
Was there any difference that you appreciated, Hector, between how Argentina reflected upon him and how he was adored in Spain?
I think the Spanish, you know, we saw the fireworks going off in Napoli over the last few days. They want to rename the stadium. I've driven through Napoli and I stayed in a hotel near the train station. Jesus Christ almighty, I thought I'd just get away with my life. Napoli, and if anyone has seen that Gomorrah series from Napoli about the gangs of Napoli, and Napoli it's beautiful, but underneath there's a seedy scene. I think it suited Maradona at the time. The Spanish, yes, they're passionate about the football. The Napolitanos are a different level totally. I think it was fitting that he was there. He blended in with everything. He blended in with the mafia. It's to say, Maradona blended in wherever he went. Whether he was up to the World Cup in Moscow and he's up in his box watching the match, he just blended in with people. He attracted people to him. He attracted those young testosterone-filled Argentinian fans that believed in him. He injected them with everything you wanted in life: passion, beautiful women, cocaine, brilliant football. He just did it all. And I just think the Spanish, he played at Barcelona, but they're spoilt at Barcelona, aren't they? They're spoilt with great players over the years. Yeah. I just think it was very quirky that he spent those months at Sevilla, and it's very interesting when you read about that era of his career. Incredible, but just the news to break this week, boys. And I know it's sport, and I know it's everything, but it's soccer, and it is Diego Maradona, and it is really, I mean, I saw Yasser Arafat. I remember watching Yasser Arafat being buried live when a helicopter flew into the West Bank and they dropped him off, and there was 50,000 people taking his coffin out through the crowd. And I watched it live on Sky News. And this will be, this explosion of tears and passion and love for Diego Maradona is only, it's just going to be hard to comprehend the scenes in Buenos Aires on Saturday when he finally will be laid to rest. There will be, I'd say, 500-600 million people watching it live in South America. It's a blow to football, and it's a blow to the beautiful game. It's a blow to the left footers of the world. Well, it's a blow to everyone who loves the game.
100%, yeah, 100%. I think, Hector, just before we let you go, like I think the Seville thing is definitely the Sevilla thing. Like look that up, have a read about it. It's Jesus, it was such a phenomenal time. Like the coach ended up changing training from morning to afternoon to suit this guy because he was going to be not
party animal.
Like it's the whole thing. Is
and
just
again,
go on.
It's interesting that Sevilla. It's not Real Madrid. It's not Barcelona. Sevilla is that city that has an underbelly as well. And you know, I think he stayed in one of the bullfighters, a world famous bullfighter's house. I mean, he crashed a Mercedes the second day he got there. I mean, everything he did down there, just endorsed himself and adhered himself to the fans down there again. But he was Maradona. He did everything differently. And when he got onto the pitch, we were all mesmerised.
I remember seeing Paul McGrath in one of his last games for Ireland against Wales and Cardiff in a friendly, and he was on his last legs at that point, but his instinct around the football was just incredible to watch. What was a 31-year-old overweight Maradona like in those? Because October would have been very early in his Sevilla days in terms of what he was doing on the pitch.
Yeah, Bilbao weren't known for their deft touches. They were known for their big tackles, but Bilbao were a decent enough team with Eoin Guerrero and a couple of good players, Gary Tano. But it was just his touches, his movement. But I couldn't believe the size of the guy. I couldn't believe how stocky he was. He was like a little half powder keg, a little half barrel. And I was completely spoilt around that time because I'd seen Ronald Koeman and the Barcelona team coming to Bilbao. I saw the pre-season friendly then, just about a month or two before that, where AC Milan came to town with Ruud Gullit, all the boys, Marco van Basten, Franco Baresi. I mean, it was a golden era around that, 91, 92, 93, 94, Milan, Barcelona, and then Maradona. How Sevilla got him and who funded it, you'll never know. But the lost year of Diego Maradona in Sevilla. And it was almost like a geographical stop-off, saying goodbye to Europe and then heading back down. Amazing.
Who's going to win the battle of the ages? So Hector, St. Paul versus Maradona for the naming rights at the Napoli Stadium. Who's going to get it done?
Diego Armando Maradona. What a name for a stadium! If the Napolitano, if they have their way, they will name it. I mean, the flares you saw all enveloping around the stadium last night, the other night, it was just incredible. I think they'll rename it. It'll be Stadio Diego Maradona, and it'll be long. There'll be a lot more statues erected to him. I mean, when he'll be interred in I went to see the Eva Perez or the mausoleums in Argentina. Those are really grand cemeteries with really grand buildings and adorned. So I'm sure the Maradona one will be something special, and it'll become a place of pilgrimage for many. And it's just those Argentinian fans, boys. When you see them, they're always there with their hand up. They're always up on top of the fence at the game, and they're giving it socks, and they're the chanting never stops. I mean, the Argentinians, they have a little bit of Irish blood in them as well, and many Irish men went down there over the years. So there's something in their DNA that makes them so fervently passionate. And I think it's unified the city, as we saw the River Plate the fans coming together with the Boca Juniors fans as well. I think it's united rivalries down there for a couple of days, and the Argentinian people will miss him. And what a player! What an absolute player!
Yeah, absolutely class. Listen, we've really enjoyed that last 10 minutes, Hector. Thanks a million for giving us that insight, and keep up the brilliant work in the podcast. Can't recommend it enough. Thanks a million.
Muchísimas gracias, Diego Armando Diego Maradona. Viva!
Thanks a million. Hector Hook on the line there, reflecting on the life of the great Diego Armando Maradona. Right, we're going to talk hurling next. We're going to get our predictions in, see exactly where the league is at. And Will O'Callaghan, it's looking particularly good for you.
Yeah, despite having an absolutely horrific weekend last weekend. But hey, Adrian, if you're right 52% of the time, you're wrong 48% of the time. And last weekend was pretty much a wipeout for all of us. But the only one saving grace, I think, for those of us who were neutrals in terms of the Gaelic football last weekend, we got the two magnificent stories with Tipperary beating Cork and Cavan overturning Donegal. I think it was around 80-1 if you back both of them going into the weekend. So that just goes to show how unlikely it was to happen. But I think it cost us all in terms of the prediction leaderboard going into this weekend.
Yeah, it didn't. The last weekend, the football really sort of done me over. Now, the only thing is we were almost all in the same boat, apart from Tommy, who'd tipped up Tipperary because he was just trying to create a point of difference. So fair play to him. Mm-hmm. He was brave, obviously, in that front. But the me going against the 3E in the hurling, well, who would have thunk it that, you know, the three experts, particularly yourself, a hurling man, let's face it.
Yeah, look, got both wrong. I still wonder. I mean, in a parallel universe, Barrett doesn't get sent off in the Galway versus Tipperary game, and maybe Tipperary hold on.
If Will, come on now.
Ifs and buts, but Tipperary were right in the game at that stage. But in fairness to Galway, Galway finished that game very strongly, and they actually used the pitch very well when they got the extra man to be able to create some overloads. And Adrian Toohey was able to get up and get into space to score that goal to give Galway the victory. And you would have to argue, I mean, obviously we're going to look at Galway against Limerick in a few minutes' time for Sunday afternoon, that Galway have done very little wrong in Championship so far this year, with the exception maybe of a 10 or 15 minute spell against Kilkenny in the Leinster final. So almost the draw sets itself up very nicely, as Paddy Stapleton was saying a few minutes ago on the show, for Galway to take on Limerick, and repeated the All-Ireland final of a couple of years ago. And maybe for the first time this year, Limerick might look vulnerable when they take on Galway. And then, Waterford put in a huge performance to keep Tony Kelly to 2 points, notwithstanding the injury he picked up early on in the game. Would have to give Waterford a lot of hope that they can keep TJ Reid quiet. They were able to stop the hurler of the year for this year potentially. They're going to have to stop the hurler of the last decade, TJ Reid, if they're going to overcome Kilkenny on Saturday night.
You're talking like a man who is tipping Waterford, but you're not a man who's tipping Waterford. We did see the scores up there on screen. For anybody who's missed them, Will is leading the way, 2-game cushion over Adrian at the moment. He's got 29 correct calls, 9 incorrect calls since we started this, whether 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. Adrian had 27 correct calls, 11 incorrect. I'm second bottom, 26 and 12, and Tommy down there at the bottom, scraping the barrel, 25 and 13. We get our predictions up on screen now. We're all going for Kilkenny, except for Tommy, who's going for Waterford. But Will, you're sounding like a man who's doubting his decision.
Yeah, look, Waterford overturned Kilkenny back in 2017. Their championship record hasn't been hectic since, but under Liam Cahill, they've now put in back-to-back performances over the last couple of weekends, which were very impressive. You know, sticking with Limerick score for score in the Munster final, and then to be able to turn around 7 days later and put in such a huge performance as they did last weekend against Clare. Like, notwithstanding the fact that they were able to put the shackles onto that Clare defence, Waterford's running game operated perfectly. De Burka looks like he's back into top form again. Desi Hutchinson adds an extra goal-scoring threat in the team, took his goals very well last weekend. That's, you know, you got Stephen Bennett up there, who's a big scoring machine too, and he's going to punish Kilkenny if they give away frees. The thing is, I wonder what happens with who goes in to occupy De Burka is a big question for Kilkenny. Also, can Kilkenny produce, and this is why I'd back them to win, I think they can, produce a kind of a manic performance like they did in the semi-finals last year. They might actually welcome Waterford running the ball out, because I think they might try and turn them over as Waterford come out of defence. It's like they did to Limerick last year, where Limerick were playing a fairly short passing game that required a certain amount of running and shooting from range. Excuse me, Kilkenny's work rate was able to stop them and turn it around and create chances themselves. I actually kind of fancy Kilkenny from that point of view. But I realise that when you're backing Kilkenny this weekend, you're doing it on the evidence of a 40-minute spell or so against Dublin, and particularly the last 15 minutes or so against Galway. We have to see a Kilkenny performance that's able to maybe merge the two of them into a 67-minute performance if they're going to beat Waterford. Generally, Kilkenny have had Waterford's number. I don't know if that's much of an emotional scar on this Waterford team, given many of them would have beaten them in 2017. But I kind of just give an edge towards Kilkenny with the extra week's break as well to just about beat Waterford. But I think this is going to be one of the close games of the weekend. And if it's high scoring, you'd give Waterford every chance of qualifying.
Tommy, why do you disagree?
I think Will actually made my case for Waterford there, and I think he's going to end up regretting the fact that he's talked himself out of it. They looked really good last weekend against Clare, the Clare team that I backed, obviously. I don't know how much they did to get Tony Kelly out of the game. I think it was a streak of unfortunate events that led to him getting injured, Clare losing, me losing my pick. Desi Hutchinson looked unreal. And on top of that, Waterford have a Mead man playing in the half-forward line. Jack Fagan scored a goal last week. So how could I not back Waterford? Like, my county are being represented in the All-Ireland semi-final stage one last time. So, I don't know. Part of me feels that if Kilkenny get into the All-Ireland final, I'm going to be back Kilkenny. So I apologise to the people of Kilkenny for that. But I just think Waterford are going to have their number here. Will mentioned there might be a psychological factor, but Waterford have been better than or as good as Kilkenny in the last three semi-finals. I think there's been a draw and a win each on two of them there. So I don't think there'll be any psychological factors. I'm back in Waterford. I reckon that Desi Hutchinson's going to score another goal.
You're going for Kilkenny-Limerick final. Give us your thinking on your picks this week.
I think, first of all, that Will should be allowed to change his mind. He's talked himself into Waterford, and I'm offering forward the motion that Will be allowed to change his mind.
That can't happen, lads.
Yeah.
Come on. There's six.
No, he's entitled to change his mind if he so wishes. Will?
No, I think. Look, I'm happy to stick with Kilkenny, and probably will end up being wrong at around 8 o'clock tomorrow night. But you back Kilkenny on a Thursday when we submit these. We stick with Kilkenny.
I'm going for Waterford. I'm going for Kilkenny at the best. Tommy's talking about Waterford look good against Clare, and I made the case last week when I got both my predictions right that Clare were not as good as they were being talked up. And Tommy himself has talked himself out of this one because he said that Waterford didn't necessarily mark Tony Kelly out of it, that he obviously picked up a couple of injuries, and that's what done for him. And I'd probably agree with that. And that's why I'm. To be fair, Paddy was talking me around slightly the other direction earlier, but I'm going to stick with Kilkenny on the basis that he'll go for the hard goal.
You got lucky with Tony Kelly's injury, just to be clear.
No, there was nothing. Like, you look at the prediction's the prediction. On life is life, as we've learned this week. And then on the other side, I've asked Paddy Stapleton what are the weaknesses of Limerick, and he can't come up with any. And I've gone with Galway 2 weeks ago. They were beaten, and I doubled down on them last week. And I'm now happy to jump ship and get on board with the greatest team in the modern era of hurling, and it'll be Limerick all the way from here.
Tommy, why is that not going to be the case? Is there any Meath men playing for Galway?
There isn't, Owen, but I was really impressed with their ruthlessness last week. I thought Tipperary would take them, but Galway looked like they were playing at a slightly different level than I would have expected. They were physical across the fields. They took the goal with Aidan Hart. Joe Canning looked in ridiculous form. To be honest, what I'm backing here is I'm backing the back-to-back performances over the potential freshness that Limerick may have. I think that'll hamper Limerick this weekend, that they've been waiting to play games for the last couple of weeks. And I just think that Galway are going to overpower them. To be honest, lads, these games are going to be epics. They're going to be so close. So whoever comes out the winners at the end of it, I need a freak weekend in ways to catch up on the table. But I'm back in Galway to get the job done.
So you don't actually believe in
No,
Galway?
I actually haven't a clue, to be honest. Like, I was going
to ask you to talk some sense into Tommy there, Will, but it seems like he's already done it. Why are Limerick going to do this at the weekend, in your opinion?
Yeah, look, I mean, it comes down really to the fact that the only blot in the Limerick copybook over the last couple of seasons has been that performance in the first half in the semi-final last year against Kilkenny. And I would imagine that for Kylie, that is the exact game plan and the motivation that you would give your players before you go in, which is don't leave the first half behind you this time around. I think Limerick are going to be immensely focused. They're tired. They're obviously not as tired as Galway will have been, with Galway having played the last couple of weeks. They're a bit rested coming into this. Limerick are the team in the championship with the pedigree, really. You look at, if things were to go wrong, even on their bench, they've got so many match winners that they can bring into the game. I think even if Galway were to get a run on them, I'd fancy Limerick to get back into it. Obviously, the All-Ireland final a couple of years ago was decided by just a puck of a ball, and even if Joe Canning had landed that late free, we could have been heading towards a replay. That's how close things have been between these teams over the last couple of years. So for the neutral, this is a wonderful matchup to get, because Galway are probably well matched to take on Limerick. And as I mentioned at the outset, Galway have been pretty impressive in championship so far this year. Their only concern would be maybe their defence at different times. Tipperary got in behind for a couple of goals in the first half last week from direct ball going in. Similarly, we saw Kilkenny when they were able to go a little bit longer and get ball in towards Colin Fennelly, and then Richie Hogan when he came on. They paid a bit of dividend against Galway in that one. That's something obviously Galway have to watch out for, because Aaron Gillan will be looking to try and stretch space in the Galway full back line, the Limerick full forward line. And I actually think Gillan is going to get a bit of space for Limerick this weekend. I think they'll pick off enough scores to beat Galway. But as Tommy said, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a score either way going into the last couple of minutes of the game.
Right, good stuff. That's a good note to end it on. Adrian, that is your quick picks for this week.
Yeah, hopefully I'll manage to nudge myself further. But I mean, Will is going to take a 2-point lead with 3 games to go anyway, so it's probably done and dusted at this point. But at 10-9 on this Friday morning, plenty of comments coming into us about the state of our faces this morning on. And on that note, Gillette, obviously, we're partaking in Movember, if people aren't aware at this point. And Gillette have special Movember packs in store in Tesco, and a donation, if you've picked up one of those over the course of the last number of weeks, will be made to charity for each purchase made there. So you can head over to movember.com/Gillette for many more ways to get involved. But we've decided, Tommy, in our wisdom, that amongst the OTB ranks, we're going to rank the state of our heads.
Yeah, I've been working on this over the last couple of weeks, lads. You can see me this morning. I'm much to my own shame, cleanly shaven. I didn't grow a mo this year. Part of that is because I don't like doing half a job, and I just couldn't see myself being able to grow a mustache. So I've taken on the job of power ranking your mustaches across the last month. And we're going to start right now in 6th place, or bottom of the table, as you may put it. And it's Ger Gilroy. So we can have a look at Ger now. He has kindly sent in a photograph of his mo. What you'll see is a severe lack of purpose and direction when it comes to this mustache. And look at his eyes. He knows it himself that he has phoned his mo in. Maybe if he'd shaved, maybe if he'd cleaned it up a wee bit, we may have given him a bit more, but no. Ger Gilroy, 6th place. Moving on to 5th place, it's Nathan Murphy. Now, Nathan should have had the best mo of the lot here. Nathan could have been number 1. He could have taken the prize possession. He had all the raw credentials. He has dark hair. He's got sallow skin. He's from Mayo. But this is a patchy effort, and he knows it himself. He's trying to distract us there with the amount of Brill cream in his hair. Come on, Nathan. You're not 14 anymore. Down in 4th place, Adrian, who's your daddy, Barry? Adrian, tell you what, I had you in 6th coming into this week, but you've redeemed yourself in the last week. It's definitely improved. It was pretty bad. But I'll be honest, it looks better on screen this morning. You get bonus points for the selfie skills, and you may have made the podium if you'd shaved your stubble, but you're missing out, because in 3rd place, we've got Kieran Bradley. Let's have a look. Oof. Now, Kieran may lose points for the goatee. He may lose points for the peak cap, but just look at that smile. How could you not put Kieran Bradley in 3rd place? Look at him. Look at that smile. Look at that to just cheer you up in the morning. Into 2nd place. This man was the hot favourite. When we did the duathlon earlier this year, he pipped me by a couple of seconds, but I've had to call in a bit of VAR and check with a couple of stewards, and I've had to put Shane Hannon into 2nd place. There's been an awful lot of rumours going around that Shane actually hired a professional barber over the last month to look after his mo. There was other people throwing a bit of shade on Twitter saying that he's actually got his mom to do it over the last month to keep him shaved up there. So Shane's gone for a bit of a 1920s vibe. It looks exceptional, but it's just not enough. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm one to back the underdog, but I will not have, predicted Eoin Sheehan to be the best mow of the month at the start of November.
Makes up for Kerry losing to Cork. High point of 2020. Get in. Correct call.
It's Conan O'Brien.
Let's have a look at Eoin Sheehan's mow. Let's just have a look at Eoin Sheehan's mow. Come on, lads. It's a thing of beauty. It's perfectly crafted. It's beautifully consistent.
Yes,
well done, Eoin Sheehan.
It is beautiful. It is consistent. Wow. And also as well,
look how happy he is.
Think about all the years I have on you guys. Like, I mean, I'm on the way up. This is like a young Diego Maradona dazzling the world at the age of 17. Like, of course, you got to add about like 10 years onto that. But still, this is like me up against a load of owl lads, and my facial hair is only going to get better. This is a massive day for me, really. This is just phenomenal. This is, thank you, Tommy. Correct call made. November 1. We like you're in it to win it. We're all in it to win it. Didn't have any help. Naturally growing with all its greatness.
I just wanted to be known. I didn't let what you've done to me over the last couple of months affect what I've done here with the power ranks, the mustaches. It was all for a great cause, lads. Well done. You did great work over the last month. Eoin Sheehan, congratulations. Adrian, I'll let you wrap with Will there, and he might give his take on my power rankings.
Yeah, well, I would say that Eoin is unbelievably turning into Conan O'Brien. Genuinely, the likeness is phenomenal, young Conan O'Brien. And I would say as well, Will, if you're still there, rumour has it that Shane Hannon, in fact, started growing his mow at the start of October. So I think he probably should be disqualified for that reason.
Yeah, Shane Hannon did that kind of sneaky thing that some guys do from November, because I noticed this the first time I saw him back in the office, is that he had a beard on the go, and then I think he shaved the beard but left the moustache area, which meant that he had a head start. But the photo actually doesn't do Shane Hannon justice. I thought Hannon was an absolute shoe-in to win this, because he could even twirl the sides of it like a Hollywood villain at this point, such as the amount of growth he's had on his moustache. He actually looks like a 1920s movie star currently. So, yeah, look, I mean, no surprise. The host of the show, which is hosting the event, has won the event in the case of Eoin. So there can be no claims that there was unfair judging here. But yeah, the two lads that probably wear beards a lot of the time, I was expecting a lot more from, and that was Nathan Murphy and Gilroy. Again, if I had started this, I had a beard at the start of the month, I would have been cheating if I started. So I think Nathan did a very rare clean shave, and that probably hurt him in the end, because Nathan's a guy who always walks around with very fashionable stubble, and similarly Ger is very rarely clean shaven. So maybe they've actually suffered from that.
There's shenanigans at play, Will. I like where you're going with this. A lot of shenanigans is the phrase of the month. Thanks a million, Will. Good man. Enjoy the hurling of the weekend.
Lads.
Enjoy the sport. Thanks a lot. Will O'Callaghan on the line there. A reminder, by the way, that the 2020 GA Football All-Ireland Championships are well underway, obviously, and narrowing into the later end now. And to celebrate Super Value as part of their Support Where You're From campaign, I've given us some great prizes to give away over the course of the championship. You can dig out your favourite ticket stub, your favourite match programme, jersey, photo with your hero, whatever it may be, any GA-related item that you've been dying to tell the country about. Make a 20-second video explaining its significance and get them into us here on OTB.
Hi guys,
get them into us on the OTB social media channels, or you can hit us up on WhatsApp 087 9180 180. We're going to choose a winner every Friday, and you're going to pick yourself up a voucher for €200 for Super Value near you, and also a chance to star in Super Value's Superfan series, which is a fly-on-the-wall peek inside the homes of dedicated supporters right around the country. Super Value are proud sponsors of the GA Football Ireland Senior Championships, and you can see youtube.com/Super Value Ireland for more details on all of that. And I'm delighted to say we have a winner for this week, and drum roll, it goes to Mike Mullins. Take a look.
Hi guys, at Off the Ball. This is Mike here. This is my presentation to you guys for the memorabilia collection. This Gaelic jersey is a Cork jersey, and it belonged to my wonderful cousin Eddie O'Brien. The jersey is 50 years old. Yes, 50 years old. Eddie wore this jersey in the All-Ireland final in 1970. 1970, guys, 50 years ago. And he scored 3 goals and a point in that final. And they were fabulous scores. So this is my entry for your competition. I would love to give you more info, but I know you have me tight on time.
We do, and you ran way over time while telling us about you were eating up your time, Mike, but nevertheless we thought it was a great entry and a great piece of memorabilia to have, and it's as simple as that. If you think you've got something as good or indeed better than that, just send us on into us here on any of our social channels using the hashtag support where you're from or on our WhatsApp number, and we'd be delighted to hear from you, and you might be in the hat for a chance to win that €200 voucher for Super Value next week. Right, we're turning to rugby now, and Alan Quinlan is on the line. Morning to you, Quinny.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Flying it, thanks. One thing that we wanted to get in with you straight away was the comments from Andy Farrell during the week about Andrew Porter, who, as everybody will be aware, was a loose head turned tight head from 2016 to now. And Andy Farrell now saying this week that he's our number one tight head at the minute, but there's a conversation about moving him back to loose head because the other options there are aging. Is it not incredibly unfair on a guy who has already had his position turned upside down 4 years ago?
No, it's easier to go to loose head from a tight head. I think from speaking to props over the years, I think the famous one on Munster was Peter Clohessy went from tight head to loose head when John Hayes emerged. And he always said to me, Peter Clohessy, that a loose head was a doddle compared to tight head. And I wouldn't say it's a doddle. Anywhere in the front row is not a doddle. But he just said that the pressure isn't the same. You're not under as much stress as a loose head as the tight head, you know. And
but whatever about the skills, Quinny, like the idea that there've been, like, you remember we spoke to him not that long ago, and he was talking about John Fogarty pulling him aside in 2016 and saying that the loose head list was long and that he should specialise in another area. So they've invested in him in that area for 4 or 5 years, and now they're saying, think
it's easier for him to go back to loose head. He's not going to lose any of the tight head experience, and that's my point really. I think experimenting with a really good loose head to try to make him into a tight head can be trickier. And obviously he's had the transition over and has done remarkably well, and he's top class international tight head now. He's still learning. The Saracen experience would have been a setback, but I think he scrummaged very well last weekend against England, and it's easier to go over to loose head is what I'm saying. So it's not going to affect him in a negative way at all. If you get Tadhg Furlong back and you can get, you play, if you had to play Porter at loose head, well, you're getting two incredibly powerful, strong guys who are really good ball players around the field as well. So it's not an issue for me. I think the depth chart now at loose head isn't where we thought it was, because, Cian Healy has been around a long time and he looks tired at times. He's still very explosive and very experienced and very important to Ireland. But the impact off the bench and stuff isn't the same with Kilcoyne not being there. And, Jack McGrath has slipped down the pecking order. And, so that depth that you speak about has changed. So we need to get fresh blood and new players, challenging for that position again and get some more depth at loose head. So, I'd have no issue with Porter moving over there. I think obviously in some games you might want to, as I said, have Porter and Furlong on the field together.
Andy Dunn was on with us during the week, Quinny, and he was talking about not seeing very much change in our tactics in the games against England, that he had fairly heavy defeats to England over the last 3 games thereabouts. It's concerning on the face of it. Do you agree that that's the case? And if so, how concerned are you by it?
Yeah, I'm not hugely concerned. I think they're trying to change. Look, it's very early, and we've got to give Andy Farrell and Mike Catt time. Of course, they've got to take some criticism for, some of the performances. The 2 big ones are the English games, aren't they? We've seen glimpses. I thought the performance in Paris was very, very positive, particularly in the first half. They did make mistakes and errors, and the pressure from the French, and when the French get on a roll and they get things happening they can do that to anyone. So look, there's definitely that game you'd look back and say there was mistakes more than anything, but they were trying to come up with a new structure. The team has been very unsettled. 9 and 10, the centres probably haven't. There's been a couple of changes there. Ringrose has been a loss in the attack, I think, and. So I do think that, looking back last weekend, and any back would say this, and I agree, in a certain sense, I do agree with Andy. But from a forwards point of view, I know myself, you can't lose 4 lineouts. They had 8 lineouts in the first half last Saturday, and they lost 4 of them. and even one or two of the 4 that they won were sloppy, and didn't really get anywhere with them. So you lose 4 lineouts in a game, well, of course it's going to affect your attack, and it's where you win it. And even 2 of the lineouts we won were at the front, and you tried to attack. I think one we brought James Lowe around the front of the lineout, and it's more difficult to attack from the front. So to get your attack right, your set pieces to be right, the scrum, but particularly the lineout. And we've seen under Joe Schmidt, when Ireland have profited in their attack and been really clinical and good and stressed the opposition, it's come off, a lot of the time, it's come off good lineouts with Leinster and Ireland over the years. So our lineout is a problem, and a lineout leader and a dominance and a body language that, you know, you look at the Irish lineout now, and I'm talking about the big games. You know, they did well against Wales. They'll do well at the weekend against Georgia. It'll be fine. But those big games, England haven't the best defensive lineup. We struggled. We made poor decisions. They literally had Launchbury and Itoje and didn't have a third jumper going up in the air. And so that indicates there's space somewhere, and we didn't find that space, and our delivery was poor. So there's issues around the attack for sure, but the issues start with the set piece, and the lineout just wasn't good enough last week. And that's an area where they really have to sort out their attack going forward. Where do we launch attacks from? How quickly can you get the ball in the middle towards the tail of the lineout? Because that's, if you get good quality ball in that area in the lineout, well, you can get the ball into Bundy Aki's hands or Chris Farrell's early, and they can run it on Farrell and they can test him, and you get over the gain line. You hope then that ruck is quick, and then you can attack again. But if that ball is sloppy and slow and you lose it, it's impossible.
It's interesting that you talk about where Ireland launch attacks from, because if you talk about losing lineouts, you immediately think of Johnny May's incredible try last week. And Eddie Jones was talking about working a little bit with Liverpool over the course of the last few months in terms of their transitional play. And that's where the Johnny May try comes from. Do you think that the Irish coaching team are operating at anything like that level, where they are trying to pull in different facets of other sports, where they actually are approaching this in quite an advanced way? Because that seems to be how England are approaching it at the moment.
Well, England are different, Owen. You know, they got to World Cup final. Their depth, the level of detail they're at is probably where we were at in 2018. I think when you have so many personnel changes, there's no point in bringing in extra expertise when you have a very unsettled team at the moment. Of course, it's always a good idea. And these kind of things come out when you're winning and when you're on the front foot. Ireland have had plenty of different specialists in over the years from other sports talking to the team. Joe Schmidt was renowned for bringing in different people, and you know, the sports science around the detail is of a very high level, and the way they monitor the players and their work rate and all that stuff in the field is of a very high level. But I think the issue at the moment is trying to find a settled team, getting confidence back into the group, and getting a little bit of an aura. The expectation is totally different. You were at the World Cup with me, and we still had that expectation of Ireland finding form, finding performance. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that even for a year or two that expectation is dampened down, and we go back a little bit to being the underdogs. And if we produce a big performance against one of the big teams, it'll be great. But obviously you want to stay and deal with expectation and enjoy that, because that's the big shift in my career onto where you know, our rugby players are now, and particularly in the provinces, having dominance, winning European Cups, and the success with Ireland. I'd rather have that expectation and pressure on my back, but I don't think it's a bad thing. And in some quarters, there's calls that Andy Farrell should have made more changes, and he's probably, you know, it's hard to just throw everyone out and make a raft of changes. But I do think this is a crucial period in the next 12 months for Ireland. You know, if he caps Shane Daly tomorrow, that'll be 10 new caps this year. Out of the 10 new caps, have we found any superstars? Have we found anyone? You know, Ronan Keller, Caelan Doris, probably James Lowe. You know, Max Deegan has been out injured for a while. A very exciting player as well. But, you know, players we really want to find. We want to find an out half. We want, you know, Harry Byrne to come in there. We want Jack Crowley to come in. Maybe Ben Healy. James Hume from Ulster, Ryan Baird from Leinster. You know, there's a lot of good, exciting young players. I was just looking back at some stuff from the under-20s this morning. They were brilliant this year. They won a Triple Crown. They didn't get to finish their championship. They won a Grand Slam the year before. So there's a raft of young players in all the provinces, in Connacht, in Ulster, that we want to try and get in. And I think, you know, I going back to your original question, of course, the RFU, and they've been very good, as I said, under Joe in bringing in different people. And I'm sure that's what you can do in international windows when they're closed, i.e. they finish this Autumn Nations. I think there'll be a big review and debrief of what happened and planning and preparing for the Six Nations. Eddie Jones obviously came out about that stuff with Liverpool, which is really interesting for anyone who's into sports, about, you know, being able to monitor that absolute detail of the work rate off the ball, on the ball. But that's something that's not new. I think that's been in rugby for a while, where you get called out. Even when I played a number of years ago, you do get called out if you're not covering ground, and it's very easy to see that. But obviously to get the real data of actually kilometres covered and all that stuff, and you know what you're doing off the ball is really interesting.
Yeah. All right, Quinlan, enjoy the game of the weekend. Thanks a million. Adam Quinlan.
Cheers. Thanks, lads.
There on this Friday morning, as he is every Friday. It's 9:10. So much for you to come across OTB Sports Radio today. At 1 o'clock, we're going to have some OTB Gold in the company of Chris Herron. At 1:30, as always on a Friday, marking your card for the weekend's football, the live Paddy Power half hour with Ger and crew. At 3 o'clock, Friday night racing with Ger and Johnny. At 4 o'clock, Team 33 Legends interview. This time is Brendan Bradley along with and the lads. At 6 o'clock, OTB Gold, Keith Andrews is going to meet Philly McMahon there. This is a conversation that you'll want to tune into if you haven't seen or heard it already. And at 7 o'clock, it's Off the Ball on the radio with Vera Powell, with an interesting and crucial few days ahead for the Republic of Ireland team. We'll get Vera's thoughts on that and Friday night racing as well. We are back with the Mayo star Aidan O'Shea next. Keep an eye out in the ad break as well for the very latest episode of the Bernard Brogan podcast in association with Super Value, and this one with Tommy Bowe.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the Ball.
Ronnie Whelan could play, by the way. And let me tell you, talk about people being dirty when you could tackle. He was filthy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Dear me.
Off the Ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
And unlike, you see, Simon Zebo and Johnny Sexton going to France, I knew that if I went to a club still in the same league, that I would be playing against an Irish province once in every 3 or 4 weeks. So it meant that for Declan Kidney, who was the coach at the time, he didn't have to take a flight over to Paris just to watch me play one game. He could watch the Ospreys playing against Leinster one week and see all the Leinster players plus me, or me against Ulster. So that kept me very much in the eyesight of the coaches, even though I was out of the country. But moving to a new club was the best thing that I ever did, because it pushed me out of my comfort zone. At the time, I couldn't get into the Irish team. Eddie O'Sullivan was coach, it was his last season, and just no matter how well I was playing for Ulster, I just couldn't get myself back into the team, and that's why I thought it needed to make a change and try something new. And it just pushed me to a new level. I trained harder than I'd ever trained before to try and get the respect of my teammates, my new teammates. And moving over there, just a change of scenery. The Ospreys played a different style of rugby, very much open, free-flowing style of rugby, and it just suited me down to the ground. And that year, I had a brilliant year for the Ospreys. I got myself back into the Irish team. We won the Grand Slam and got to go and play for the Lions over in South Africa, which, playing for Ireland was always my dream. Playing for the Lions was beyond a dream. I watched the 97 Lions video when they won over in South Africa. Must have watched that tape till it's broken, and never ever dreamt of going on a Lions tour. Unfortunately, I've been on 2, but they're the best memories I'll ever have.
Bet smart this season with stat betting on the Boyle Sports app. For the first time ever, bet on shots, shots on target, tackles, passes, assists and more, all powered by Opta. Why not check out the hottest action on the biggest game of the week right now on the Boyle Sports app. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Need help? Contact gamblingcare.ie. 18+.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember.
Gentlemen, let's move.
Yeah, nearly 9:15 on this Friday morning. Welcome back to the show. In the ads there, you would have seen a short clip from episode 2 of the Burn and Brogan podcast in association with SuperValu, who are proud sponsors of the 2020 All-Ireland Football Championship. And there's lots more of that good stuff coming your way, including that full show. It's available right now in the OTB GA podcast stream, so you can check it out there and subscribe, because next Wednesday we're going to bring you Bernard in conversation with none other than Shane Lowry. And as I said, all that with thanks to SuperValu. You can check out #support where you're from for much more details on that. And a reminder as well that we have a very special roadshow coming your way next week in advance of the Ireland football semi-finals. We'll have Cora Staunton on to talk a little bit about Mayo. We'll have Martin McHugh on, who managed Cavan, of course, in '97, and we'll reflect on events there in 2020 as well. We're going to talk to Pat Short about the importance of the impact of their progress on the people of Tipperary, and Declan Brown as well to cover off the football angle there, and we'll have plenty more as well to be announced. So that's coming your way. Keep an eye out on OTB social channels over the course of the next week. Right, I mentioned Mayo. Let's turn now to Aidan O'Shea, Audi Ballina ambassador. I'm delighted to say joins us on the line. Morning to you, Aidan.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Flying, and thanks. Yeah, thanks a million for jumping on this morning. Great to get a chance to chat to you, and we'll talk to maybe a bit about the football in a second. But I see you've been tweeting about the thing. We spent much of the morning, and to be fair, much of the last week talking about the passing of Diego Armando Maradona. What did he mean to you?
Yeah, obviously I'm a little bit younger in terms of having a chance to see him play. So, yeah, I suppose he's an iconic figure. And I suppose reference to myself, I seen Keith Earls. I think it was I read or listened to him talk about watching the famous clip of him warming up prior to games, and I just thought it was brilliant. That clip, I love watching it. So it's something I try and do before a big game or on the way in a bus, usually a bus. Try and watch the clip. I just think it just shows the kind of that kind of freedom and just wandering around doing his own thing, laces opened. Just raised the ball, and I think anybody that you listen to or read about that's played with him or come across him just shows the kind of character he is. I know he's a flawed genius, but a genius at best.
Is there room for that kind of approach for in a Mayo warm-up? Does James Horan say, listen, you tip over there and start doing a few keepy-uppies and tipping it off your shoulder?
Have you not seen McD doing the warm-ups before we come out on the pitch the last few weeks? Yeah, there's another genius there. But yeah, no, I'm not quite sure we've time these days when we get out of the pitch with COVID. We have about a very short window to get a bit of work done. So I'm not sure we'd have too much time to be going around with the laces open.
Yeah. Look, obviously everybody's looking at the Final Four, and they're hanging their hats on Mayo, rightly or wrongly, to be the only ones that are left now that are capable of challenging Dublin. So no pressure.
None taken. Yeah, no, we're just... obviously we've had the extra week's break. We were able to sit back and look at the quarterfinal or the quarterfinals or the Connacht, the provincial finals everywhere else last weekend, and obviously we had an eye on the Munster provincial final. And obviously you knew it could have gone either way going into it. Two very good teams, and I suppose no surprise from our side that Tipper, our opponents, we've played them a couple of times over the last few years, and a really experienced team with some quality up there as well.
What's it like actually having a break this year before a massive game?
Yeah, strange actually. I took some time last weekend and just kind of counted up the number of games I've played since we came back. I think it's something crazy like 17 or 18 games in 19 weeks. So it's been pretty insane in terms of full on from club right through to the county. So I have to say I was delighted to have a weekend off and recharge the batteries. It was definitely required. Love playing football and love playing games, but just trying to balance everything in terms of work and trying to recover and get ready and get your kind of information you need about the opposition ahead. And obviously training. So it's just it is full on, and the break has been much needed.
Because that has been the question or the dilemma around Mayo in recent seasons, that qualifier runs have allowed you to build up a head of steam, but really some of your best performances have come in an All-Ireland final after that break, whereas say last year against Dublin went into that game much more rested than you did, it seemed.
Yeah, well, we played all right for the first 35 minutes, but yeah, look, it's one of those conundrums that people are already saying into the goal game for us, that we've been on the road for 5 weeks and they've been fresh in terms of not having any kind of title or kind of championship game. It can go both ways, I suppose. But Yeah, no, I think that for us, we have built up a nice bit of momentum. We've got an opportunity to play a lot of players. Guys, I think we've had 8 or 9 championship debutants over the last 5 weeks, which is huge. And, that's been great for the squad. And also we've got players coming back from injury as well, which means we're in a pretty good position going to this semi-final.
How good are these young guys in terms of being in the camp, in terms of having the head on their shoulders to be able to, I guess, stand the battle in these big games that are coming up over the next few weeks?
Yeah, look, we don't know the answer to that question, but yeah, they're really good players. The fact that James is throwing them in, he's not throwing them in for the sake of throwing in a young fella. They're ready and they're really, really capable guys. We've known that for the last number of years. There's a nice core group of players coming through there. Mightn't have seen it in underage success somewhat, but we know from playing against them the level of player they are. And then I suppose when they come in, I think the break with COVID may have helped as well. Just gives you more opportunity for the guys just to, I suppose, mature in terms of physically, and then obviously just even on the mental side of the game and technical side of the game to understand the requirements and stuff like that. So I think it has helped in some way. Some of the players that maybe played earlier in the league, you've seen a big sea change when we come back. So that's been huge, and I think the freshness about it for us. As kind of the older brigade, I don't really like saying that, but they are. It's great and it's infectious, to be honest, to be around them. You talk about Maradona earlier on; these guys are coming in kind of free. They're exciting, they're expressive. They're not worried about the consequences of losing a ball or kicking it away. Sometimes as you get older, you probably worry a little bit more about the consequences of a turnover, whatever it is, and it plays on your mind a bit more. These guys don't think like that, so it's cool.
What's Tommy Goals like in training?
The funny thing about the Tommy Goals one is there's another Tommy Goals from Kiltane, and his nickname is actually Tommy Goals. And there's a funny story. I won't name the player about who it was, but he came in. Tommy Goals actually came into the squad. He's from Kiltane, a really good player. And I remember another corner forward who was in the squad at the time said his nickname was Tommy Goals, and he scored lots of goals, but the other corner forward said, yeah, he'll be Tommy Assist when he comes in here. But anyway, no, Tommy's a serious player, lovely fella. I know he comes from the Neil down in South Mayo, and they're hugely proud of what he's doing. But his speed alone, but his work rate off the ball is, it's up there with anybody else in the country at the moment. He's working so hard off the ball, tackling back, getting turnovers for us, which is huge. He's a really exciting prospect.
Who's promoting that culture in the campaign of not allowing fear to seep in? You mentioned there's a lot of fear in Gaelic games at the moment. If you kick a ball away, you almost feel like you're getting dropped. Why don't Mayo players feel like that?
I think it's down to, I suppose, some of the coaching, just kind of get back to that expressive piece. We back our skill set, and also back to that point of the younger group. It's the way we want to play. We want to play an exciting kind of football. We understand there's a bit of risk to that in terms of turnovers. And a lot of teams are playing possession-based football, but we want to play a high-octane game where we take risks and we play free. So I think we have the players to do that, and I think, as I say, those younger crew are really exciting, and I think they've embedded so well with that kind of model that it works for us.
How have you been enjoying, I guess, a bit more time at full forward this year? I think when everybody came back, that game against Galway in particular was one that raised a lot of eyebrows, that you would be in there and causing a lot of damage in and around the square. Is that where you're going to be for the rest of the year?
I have enjoyed it. I suppose the first point, I have enjoyed it in terms of, I think back in January or February when I was back training, James and Kieran just kind of came to me and said, look, we're going to try and play here a bit more and want you to get more comfortable in there. I think, previously, and maybe I've mentioned this, but, it's not a position that you can just throw yourself into. You need to spend time there. And I think my comfort levels in there previously, I can do a job, but just to get more comfortable in terms of my movement, my patience in there, and just to build up a level of understanding with the players around me, both outside and in. I probably haven't had that time. And for basically the whole year, when we came back, I've been playing there for the club and just working hard in that position, which I've never really done in my career. So I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. In terms of whether I'll be there for the rest of the year, I'm not sure. obviously in and out against Galway and similar against Roscommon, and we'll see against Tipperary. I've been there, enjoying it, and if that's where James wants to be playing a week's time, then absolutely no problem.
How do you work on the movement that you mentioned there?
Yeah, like just being a bit more efficient with it. I'd probably be for somebody who goes in there not too often. They probably an awful lot of straight line running, and it's much easier to mark. And I'd probably just watch. We're lucky to have the technology of the drones and stuff like that at training, so you get a good aerial view of your movement and things that you can work on, and just that timing aspect as well, because there's no point making decent runs if you're not making it at the right time in terms of the people out the pitch and what their skill sets are. So it's all those kind of things, enjoying the dots together and making sure that you're efficient and effective in what you do inside.
That playing a bit further inside, Aidan, does that mean we're not going to get to see yourself and Colin O'Riordan, who's been cleared, I think, in the last 24 hours to play, duking it out around the middle of the pitch under the high ball?
I'm sure there'll be a few throw-ins that I might wander out for, but Colin's a serious player, and obviously we've seen that even when he was playing under 21 as it was at the time, and he's done unbelievably well down in Australia. So it's a huge boost for Tipperary, but I think our guys out around the middle will look forward to that challenge and embrace it.
You were talking there a little while ago about the break. Obviously, it's been forward over the last little while, and there was a bit of rest and recuperation. And I suppose he lets the mind relax a bit. Has it allowed you at all, or have you thought at all about, like, you have been around and the rarity of an All-Ireland semi-final, not to mind a final, and that they don't come around that often, and how close you are to be within grasp of climbing the steps of the Hogan stand, you yourself obviously to lift the trophy given your position this year. Have you allowed your mind to drift or to wander or to visualise maybe what that might be like?
No. I think for us as inter-county footballers, I said this to the group before the Galway game. We had a chance going into the Galway game to basically come together, whatever it was, 7 or 8 times again before the next game, and I think we're really lucky at the moment. A lot of people are struggling in terms of level 5 lockdown, not being able to do what they love doing, whether that might be going to see their parents, go to a gym, whatever it is. And I genuinely just think we've really enjoyed that aspect. We're so lucky to have an outlet at the moment. I'm not quite sure if I was out of the championship, I'd be struggling with the boredom of being in our house. And I think that being able to go to training tonight and meet the lads and basically do what we love doing, and being able to extend that for a couple of weeks, I suppose that's one of the driving factors going into next weekend. I want to do that for another couple of weeks. I want to do it for as long as I can this year. So I think that's a really important thing for us, and something that personally I've really enjoyed, that outlet.
Yeah, well, you've 31 counties cheering you on, obviously, is the happy position you can be in at the minute. We'll see how it pans out over the next few weeks. We mentioned at the top you're on, obviously you're an Audi Ballina ambassador. What model are you driving?
Driving an A4, S-Line. It's lovely, yeah. They're great down there, so big shout out to them.
Good. Well, nice to be able to travel in style at the minute, obviously, anyway, and everybody has to travel that way. Aidan, best of luck, obviously, best of luck over the next few weeks, and thanks a million for joining us.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a million.
Thanks a lot. That's Aidan O'Shea on the line, obviously ahead of the All-Ireland semi-finals. And yeah, that's that for the minute. You can check out all the best stuff, by the way, if you head along to otbsports.com. You can check out all the best stuff up there. 27 minutes past 9 on this Friday morning for you. We are here, obviously, with thanks to Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We're going to bring you John Giles on Diego Maradona before 10 a.m. this morning. Right now, delighted to say that the crappy quiz is back. It's been a long 6-month hiatus. Enjoy.
Round 1 is the boring questions round, never multiple choice. Question 1 for you, Adrian. It is a busy week of sport. Plenty of Premier League this weekend. There are All-Ireland hurling semi-finals to look forward to. And of course, Maradona has died. But can you tell me the name of Katie Taylor's last opponent, who she beat earlier this month?
From Argentina, Gutierrez.
Oh, what's her first name?
Who cares?
Are we going to give the point for Gutierrez?
Of course you are. Gutierrez.
Can I just say, before you give him the point, like, we got a WhatsApp message from Jer asking could he prepare for this. Adrian Barry definitely knew that question was coming. Just admit
No, I
you knew
didn't
that question
actually.
was coming.
I did not, but I should have expected it, Tommy, but I did not know that was coming.
Okay, I knew it was coming. All right, give him the point.
All right, 1 point for Adrian. Miriam Gutierrez was her last opponent. Question 1 for you, Tommy. Can you name the hurler who put up the top score in a single game so far in this year's Liam McCarthy? Hint, his name is not Tony Kelly.
I'm not really a fan of the old hurling lads. I'll give you that much. Who could that be?
Tommy hates hurling. I mean, he does. It's true.
Burn the hurls.
You see yourself as better than Tony Kelly because you don't play hurling?
No. How could it not be Tony Kelly in the Liam McCarthy? Are you sure?
TikTok.
Not Tony Kelly. Can I say Joe Canning?
You can, but it's wrong. The answer is anyone?
Dublin.
Dublin.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that was Donald Burke, but that was level. That was the same as Kelly got the first night. It was the exact same.
No, it wasn't.
Kelly got 115 in a game. He exceeded Burke the following week.
You can't be checking your scores. The answer's no. You got it wrong.
You can check that.
No,
you can check that as
Kelly. I was going to say Donald Burke, but I was like, he only had that game, so he wouldn't have outscored Kelly the next day.
The answer that's written down on the
unless there's an egregious error.
Fair point.
Like we gave Adrian a point there. Like,
no, but I got the answer
right.
right.
Actually, technically right. If I'm technically right,
what did Kelly hit?
I want the answer.
What did Kelly hit?
115.
Don't
116
worry.
Burke hit.
Yeah, 116. So
yeah, but Burke, what did Burke hit? Burke hit 17 one night.
116 he scored. 116
sure?
Burke scored.
Yes, I always double check my.
Did you just give me the finger?
Donald Burke. Donald Burke scored 116 against Laois. Tony Kelly scored 115 against Wexford. Tony Kelly scored 17 points against Limerick.
Right. Fair play to you, Burke.
Right. Question 1 for you, Ger. Only one county has managed to keep the Dubs to a single-digit winning margin in Leinster since the start of the 2015 season. Which county is it?
Since 2015.
Yes, their third unbeaten championship one.
A Leinster county has lost by less than 10 points.
Yeah.
This is a ridiculous answer, but I'm going to go with it. Was it the mighty Carlow?
No, it wasn't. Anyone?
It was Meath in 2013.
It wasn't Meath, no. 2013 doesn't count in this, obviously.
I didn't hear it. Sorry. What was the question?
The answer was actually in 2017, and the answer was Kildare. They lost by 9 in 2017. Kildare, man, gets it wrong.
Was that the time they conceded 5 goals, no?
That would have been 2015, I think. When they conceded 5. Sorry, I actually can't remember. Round 2.
Remember it forever. They'll sing songs and write poems about it.
Round 2 is the Maradona round, and question 2 for you, Adrian. Peter Shilton has been crying the saltiest tears in the history of mankind this week. As you said already, he said that Maradona had greatness, but no sportsmanship. Can you tell me how many inches taller than Maradona Shilton is said to have been, aka by Wikipedia? I'll give you an inch either side.
No, he's already got a point. He's already got a point.
No, that's fair enough. No, don't worry about how many points I have. Lads, it's an obscure, ridiculous question that there's almost
no. It's not. It's a very, very easy question. We had Grant Smith on last night saying he was 5'2". That's ridiculous.
But people exaggerate.
But you're giving him a head start.
We know he's not 5'2".
Like you're giving him the Katie Taylor. Oh,
I'm going to say 5'7", and like Shilton must have been like sometimes keepers' height get exaggerated.
Probably 6'7".
He's either I'd say he's in the 6'3" direction.
Shilton's a giant. Have you never seen him?
6'3".
Look at the size of his hands.
That would have us at. I'm going to say.
Oh, and do you know how many inches there are in a foot?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say 6 inches.
Not a chance.
Ayo.
Correct. Well, no, not correct. You get the point. The answer is 7.
Yes.
No, you're not giving him that. You're not giving him that. No way.
They're the rules of the games, lads.
We ascertained
what can you do?
We're not doing that.
That's the rule of the game.
Nobody's hiding the internet is accurate. So I'm allowing for the correctness of the quiz.
Exactly, Eoin. Dead right.
Take the
tailor point off Quizmaster.
What height is Maradona? He's 5'4". He's actually 5'4".
He's
4'4".
Actually, he's 5'5", written on my paper.
No. You're just making that shit up now.
And also,
written on my sheet.
Yeah, exactly. the answer that's written on my sheet is
there this morning. I looked and it's 5'4.5", right? Like 5'4" point something. And what height is Shilton?
Google Maradona height and feet. The answer is 5'5".
Listen, the point being, as Jerry, you yourself said a little bit earlier, what the answer on my sheet is, and that's all that matters.
Shilton is 6 foot, so that's 7 feet, 7 inches of a difference. And Adrian said 6, so he gets the point. Congratulations, it is 2-0 at this point. Question 2 for you, Tommy. Maradona lies 5th in the overall Argentina scoring chart. Can you give me 3 of the 4 that are ahead of him?
Messi.
Yes.
Hardly a fella like. Not Batistita, is it?
2.
Is he allowed to get coaching? Is that how that works? Oh,
am I not
wrong? Is it this?
No. That was my guess. I was just
wasn't your
leaving a bit of doubt.
No, like the next name you say is obviously your answer if we're playing by these rules.
Now, so you're saying there's 4 ahead of him, and I need to give 3.
Come on.
Yeah. You need to get one more, Tommy. Come on.
You get one more, yeah.
Who scored a lot of goals for Argentina? Have a guess. Come on.
Adrian gets half an answer for a surname.
I am currently Maradona to your Shilton, and if you want to get your hands on the ball, get on about it here and get an answer.
He got a numerical question. He got a wiggle room of 2 separate inches up or down on it. That was a ludicrous decision by you, Eoin. When you consider the answer is 6, he got 16% margin of error. That's what he got.
I want to say...
Come on, Tommy.
Carlo and Kildare, 16%.
Come on.
Margin of error.
Jerry, you didn't even get Kildare right for your previous question.
Tommy, give me an Argentinian name here. We're getting carried away here. Come on.
All right, I'm going to say...
Say it.
It can't be... I'm going to say...
Just say it.
The only other Argentina player you can think about that...
No, I've got 4 in my head. I don't want to... Who?
Valdano.
Aguero. No, Milito.
Milito, wrong. Aguero would have scored you the point, though.
No, I said Aguero first. My first answer. No, hold on a second.
Tommy, get out of it. Get out of it.
Hold on a second.
I said Aguero first. How many answers did you have?
My first answer was Aguero.
So you're saying then you guessed Milito after guessing your first answer?
No, I tried to make up for the embarrassment of getting it wrong.
I
looked at the heads news. I know, lads, come on now. I said Aguero.
Get out of it.
No way.
Move on.
What is the rule? Owen, what is the rule?
The rules are that you get...
Maybe you would have got it if you didn't hear Aguero. You didn't say.
Forget about drama here, right?
That's your
What
problem.
is the actual rule? I said Aguero.
I didn't hear you say
it. Turns out there are no rules.
What?
The rule is that you had to give me 3 of the 4 that are ahead of him, and I heard...
Yeah, and I gave you the first 2.
If you guessed Aguero, why were you also guessing Milito? Makes no sense.
It was the other person in my head. So I said Aguero first.
You should have more answers after you're finished.
It doesn't matter. The point's not standing. The answer for anybody who actually wants to legitimately play along at home, Messi, Aguero, Batistuta, and Crespo was the other of the 4. Question 2 for you, Jared.
I love the idea that there are people legitimately playing along at home, by the way. Are there?
Name the manager, Jared, who left Diego Maradona out of the 1978 World Cup squad.
Before we finish this round, I need that point.
No, it's not happening.
Okay, what if we play it back later on and you hear Aguero first?
Doesn't matter. Whatever my live reaction was is fine.
Well, you shut up. I'm trying to remember who the manager was before Passarella.
I'm looking for a trigger or something like that.
Looking at Google.
No,
are you talking to Alexa there?
What's going on here?
What are you looking at?
Is he Googling this?
Look at him like.
He is Googling. He's Googling.
He's using voice. He's using voice.
I'm looking at Eoin.
He's on mute going, Alexa.
Your shower cheaters.
Argentina manager.
You're giving him hints now.
It's Passarella or it's the older guy? Passarella.
No. Menotti. So it is currently Adrian 2, Tommy 2. Oh, sorry, Tommy 0, Jared
1.
0. Round 3. The Who Saw That Coming round. After Mickey Hart became loud manager and Alan Pardew became the technical director of Seska Sofia this week, this round will test your knowledge on some of the most unexpected appointments in managerial history. Adrian, question 3 for you. Which Premier League legend was appointed by Granada in 2017 and subsequently went viral for his training ground antics that bordered on interpretive dance?
Oh, yeah.
You don't know this one or you don't?
Come on, Adrian.
I think
Can we get a bonus point? Can we get a bonus point?
No. Hang on.
No, come on. The time on this to like look back.
Yeah,
and, come on.
Go, give it to me again there.
No.
Fridays.
Give me the question there once more. Come on.
We don't have that much time.
Give me the question there once more.
The manager for Granada in 2017 went viral for dancing and training, basically.
Premier League legend, you said?
Yes.
Oh.
TikTok.
I remember. How many Premier League legends are walking through your head like right now? Come on, give him 5 seconds.
5.
No. You had like half an hour mulling over your...
You're 2-0 up, Adrian. Come on, just give us an answer.
No, hang on.
Like, for those people who are seriously playing along at home, they have this...
He doesn't... I'm going to kick myself because I remember this happening, and I can't remember who it was. So I know it's not him, but Thierry Henry.
No, Tony Adams.
Tony Adams.
Shit. Damn it.
You were nearly there, Adrian.
I was at the right club, right? I was at the right club.
Tommy, question 3 for you. Any county board appointing an outsider tends to raise eyebrows in GEA circles, but can you give me the name of the last manager to win a provincial title with a county of which he is not a native?
Jesus, did Monaghan win one? Ooh. Anthony Cunningham?
No. The answer is Davy Fitzgerald with Wexford last year.
Oh, you never said hurling or football.
For God's sake, Tommy.
Are you going by the date there? Or like, you know Cunningham's a Galway man.
Yeah, no, I looked at it. Davy Fitz, June 30th, 2019, Wexford won. June 16th, 2019, Roscommon beat Galway to win the Connacht Championship last year. So Anthony Cunningham is
I've had a lot of messages over the last couple of days saying, you know, fair enough, we got a pummeling, but what is Eoin Sheehan's problem with Meath? And I've actually ignored a lot of them because I don't want to get into a conversation like that back and forth. I wouldn't like somebody to screenshot my DM about my presenter and send it around the place. So, like, my only answer has been 2001, like. Is that the only problem you have with me, like? 2001, the hammer we gave you, like. Like, what is going on here? This is dirty, Eoin. This is dirty.
I met a lad and he had a thing to say about you now. I won't tell you what he said, but he said this.
Tommy, you are Donald Trump, honestly. I've had a lot of people, tremendous people, sending me messages. Tremendous people. And they don't like this.
People on both sides.
They don't like this guy. He knows nothing about rankings.
I'm hurt here. The Royals will rise again and we'll go right down to the kingdom and we'll beach us one day.
I look forward to that. Question 3 for you, Ger. The Indian Super League is a who's who of legendary footballers and journeyman managers. But can you tell me which of the following is not a manager in India currently? A. Robbie Fowler, B. Owen Coyle, or C. Craig Bellamy?
So a multiple choice question where we attack.
Here's a gimme.
Yeah.
Jared gets a gimme.
So at least you have a 1 in 3 shot, not like us, Tommy, to actually put some thought in.
Adrian, you can pipe down. You've already got 2 chances. I've been robbed.
Bellamy.
Very well crafted.
Bellamy, final answer?
Yes.
You sure? Yes, it is correct. Bellamy.
Screw you, Sheehan. Screw you with your double bluffs.
He is He's an Anderlecht underage coach. Coyle is manager of Jamshedpur and Fowler is over East Bengal. So they're both managing at the moment in the Indian Super League. So the scores at the moment are Adrian 2 points, Ger 1 point, Tommy 0, going into round 4, which is of course the fun, free magic number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right in this round. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to state that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper, and I'm going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. the number of World Cups in which Maradona played, plus the number of European clubs for which he played, plus the number of goals he scored in the 1986 World Cup, plus the number of European Cups he won during his time in Europe. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So the number of World Cups in which Maradona played, the number of European clubs that he played for, the number of goals scored by Maradona in the 1986 World Cup, plus the number of European Cups he won during his playing career. All right, time is up. Pens down.
Come on, pens down. Adrian, he's still writing.
No, I've been finished.
Adrian, what have you got?
12.
15.
12.
Tommy's gone
14.
Let's
12 is the correct answer.
Whoa! Boom!
Right, let's go through these. Take us through them.
Well,
take us through them, sir.
82, 86, 90, and 94, even though sent home from disgrace in 94. 3 clubs played for. Finishes up at Sevilla, plays for Barca, first place for Napoli, famously in the middle of it. 5 goals in the 86 World Cup, which is top scorer, and 0 European Cups. He won the UEFA Cup. Never won the European Cup.
Yeah.
Yo soy el Diego.
I have to say, when you said European Cups,
you were counting the UEFA Cup like an ignoramus.
It is a European Cup. That's genuine. That's what
and I have to. Yeah, European trophy. And I have to say, that's
right. Yeah.
Okay, Adrian, like this is the one that might catch
Very
us here.
important, Tommy.
I have to say, when you said how many World Cups did Diego Maradona play in, I took that as meaning how many World Cups did he kick a football in?
He did. Kicked the World Football in all of them, Tommy. All of them.
You're saying like an under 20 World Cup or whatever, is it? What are you?
Which bit of you?
Like if you go with that, actually, there's probably 5. In fairness, didn't he win like an under 20, under 20s, whatever it was?
Can I just point out how that Tommy resorted to peak meanness there? Could you hear it coming out in his accents? Where the blood was getting a little bit up there. You could sense that like the fullback had just accidentally stood on his foot, and Tommy was having no more of that accidental standing on his foot.
Oh, and do you accept that you misworded that question about the European Cups?
No.
I certainly accept why we went on a 6-month hiatus from the crappy quiz.
Jesus, that was wrong. Honestly, I put the UEFA Cup in there.
Get over it.
What did you put down? What did you put down anyway? You'd 15.
I had 2, but that's not the point.
Well, you were bust either way.
The score.
With the point being that you would have been bust, and then nobody would have got any points.
No, I wouldn't have been bust. I would have been one behind. I would have still won.
You go.
This would be a Cavan-style comeback if I can come back from here.
It would be. Jer's on 4 points, Adrian's on 2, Tommy's on nothing. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Peter Parkers from the Peter Shiltons. It's the no theme, a particular ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. There will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We're going to start with the highest number of points. The person in that position is Ger, then on to the person in second, which is Adrian, then on to the person in last. That's you, Tommy. If you get a question correct, I'll ask you another question and keep asking you questions until you get one wrong.
This can change really quickly, Tommy. Don't worry about it.
Oh, don't worry, I'm in it.
We can all end on 0.
The deduction of 1 point. Ger, are you ready?
Aha.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Name the last Ulster team to win the All-Ireland in football.
Come on, time.
TikTok, time's up. Donegal, no, too late. Adrian.
No, you said time's up. Wait,
I can't hear.
No. Start that again.
There's no starting again. You got the question incorrect.
Cheating.
You got the question incorrect.
This is a joke.
Last job before taking over Ireland, Adrian.
Go again on. I can hear you.
What was Trapp's last job before taking over Ireland as Republic of Ireland manager?
Red Bull.
Correct.
Which one? Which Red Bull?
I can't hear. Go again on.
In what year did Michael Jordan last win an NBA championship?
1997.
No, 1998. Who was thrown out of this year's football championship, Tommy?
Donegal.
Correct. Maradona played for which club before Boca?
Argentina Juniors.
Argentinos Juniors. Time is up anyway. Because of the delaying tactics.
No, I got the answer.
You're not giving more.
You can't. Surely there's more time to go here. There has to be more time to go.
If you're giving Adrian Katie Taylor,
Owen, he ate up half the quiz, bitching and moaning about a question he got wrong.
Come on, Owen.
Hang on a second.
Disgraceful.
I didn't get it wrong. I think there may well have been some delay on your line, Owen, but I got that answer correct.
Jerry, you took about 4 seconds.
The whole point of the rapid fire is rapid fire.
Hold on a second.
Where was
Am I not getting that point?
It doesn't matter.
It makes no difference one way or the other.
But I would have got another question. But if you started, I would have finished.
You got another question, you got it wrong. No, there needs to be another 20 seconds of questions here.
What was the next question, though?
No, I can't. But like the next time, that will be punished more severely. Jerry, you do
terrible.
That's 3 points.
That's shocking. That's
bullies.
Levels of
bullies win. That's bullies.
Dick Turpin with a moustache.
In fairness, you did take quite a while to answer your question as well, Adrian, and that was the big issue here as well.
No, I couldn't hear because they're bitching and moaning, the roaring, the shouting, the disputing.
It's obviously been a disgraceful return for the quiz. We might be back next week, but that was obviously a disgrace, and I apologise to everybody, really, because that was awful. But congratulations, Jerry. You finished on 3 points. Adrian, you finished on 2. Tommy, you finished on nothing. That was the crappy quiz for this week. Maybe. See you next week.
We're now joined by Republic of Ireland football legend Johnny Giles. John, how are you getting on?
I'm good, Will, thank you.
Maradona passed away yesterday morning, John. We were chatting a bit earlier on. You played a couple of times against him with a League of Ireland selection and also when he came to Dublin in 1979. So Maradona would have been 18 and 19 years of age respectively in those games. You were at kind of a crossroads. You were coming towards the end of his career. His was only starting out. Was it obvious at the start, John, when you saw him, when he came on in those games, that he was going to be a really good player? Or what did you make of the teenage Maradona?
Well, the first time I played against him was we had a League of Ireland team going over to play the Argentinian full team before the World Cup in preparation for them in 1978. And he came on in the second half, Will. But actually, I don't remember him on the night. I was too worried, actually, about the result at that time. When we went to Argentina at that time, I didn't know we were playing the Argentinian full team with the League of Ireland team, to be quite honest. So we were beaten 3-1, which was a miracle result for us. He came on in the second half, but I don't remember him making any impression on it. I remember him in Dublin the following year. Actually, it was my last match for Ireland at the time, and he came on in the second half. And I remember coming in the edge of the box with his on his left foot, pushed it inside, and he hit one about 20 yards out and nearly broke the crossbar. So you could tell that this fella could really play, but he wasn't well known at that time, Will. You know, he was just coming on.
And I suppose he was unlucky in a way, John, that he was coming through in 1978, obviously in a squad for a friendly game in the preparation, but wasn't quite kind of at that first team level. He probably just about missed out on what could have been his first World Cup medal if he'd maybe been a few months older.
Well, I believe he was very, very narked about it, Will. He thought he should have been in the team in 78 for the World Cup in 78. And maybe he should. He wasn't. I don't think he was even in the squad. So I think I remember reading about it afterwards. He was really, really narked about that at that particular time. I'd say he probably was good enough. I mean, they had a new manager coming in and probably felt, well, he's a little bit too young yet. I don't know. I only saw him against us, and he was a very, very young lad. But I read afterwards that he was very, very annoyed about not being in the squad for the World Cup in 78.
Yeah, 3 years later, he'd go on to be the world record signing when he eventually left Argentina to go to Barcelona. It was maybe Napoli before we saw the best of his club football in Europe. But when you think about it, John, you're going through 1986. I watched the documentary again, which came out about a year ago. It was on last night on More 4. And just one thing that really stands out is you look at that 1986 World Cup, you know, at a time when, you know, not a huge amount of football was on TV outside of, say, the World Cup where you got blanket TV coverage. I've never known a player to ever light up a tournament in the same way that Maradona lit up that tournament in Mexico, where he was the standout player by a million miles.
A million miles. And, you know, playing in an Argentinian side, which wasn't the best, but obviously he had the ability to raise the level and do it on his own. Well, that's what I think. I mean, I've written down a few names here of the players that were great. You know, Messi, Ronaldo, Di Stefano, Puskas, Cruyff. Jimmy Greaves, Dennis Law, Georgie Best, and Pele. And I would say, looking at them all and having seen them all and played against most of them all, I'd say he was probably the best of them, Will. And the reason I'm saying that is that, you know, there's a thing in football, I've always said on your programme, you know, you're only as good as the players around you. But he actually played in a team in Naples and in Argentina that weren't that good. But he was like, Pele was great at what he did. So was Messi, Ronaldo. But this fella could actually dribble the ball from a distance from goal better than any. In other words, he could do it on his own. Like Pele, for example, needed people. He was a great finisher. So was Ronaldo. And they've had people to make the goals for him. This guy actually could do it on his own. And what epitomises him is the goal he scored. A lot of people, football people, will remember him scoring the goal against England, where he got on the ball in his own half and ran through the whole defence. Now, I don't think any of the players that I mentioned, those great players, were capable of doing that on their own, you know. And this guy could make it on his own. His balance, his dribbling, his speed, he's great. Obviously, put his colleagues through. Wasn't selfish. So that's why I would probably put him at the top of that list.
Well, especially as well when it comes to that goal against England, John, you know, special as it is, and everyone's been, you're re-listening to the multiple brilliant commentaries of that goal in the quarter-final against England in '86. The magnificent thing is that he goes on in the next round in a semi-final against Belgium and scores a goal that probably would be far better remembered if it hadn't been for the England goal. But again, you know, a weaving run and a fantastic finish at the end of it as well. It wasn't just a one-off goal. This was Maradona in '86 at the absolute peak of his powers.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, he could score that goal, which would look easier, you know, and maybe Messi and Ronaldo at their best could do that, and Pele at their best could do that. But I've never seen any of them do what he did against England and dribble from his own half into the penalty area, into past people and score. You know, and he was capable of doing that. That's why I say, like, and I'm not being disrespectful, don't be disrespectful to Ronaldo and Di Stefano and even Pele. They needed people. They were strikers that needed people to lay it on for them. It might be difficult for them to get headers and all like that. But Maradona didn't need anybody. He could actually do it on his own. And I know I'm labouring the point a little bit, but I haven't seen anybody else do it. Messi is a great dribbler, and he can beat players. But I've never seen anybody do it from the distance out that Maradona could do it, either to score a goal on his own or to make a goal. And as you say, the two goals in those particular matches in the World Cup in '86 were exceptional. You know, particularly everybody remembers the goal against England from his own half, dribbling in, going past the keep, everything. I've never seen Messi do that. I've never seen Pele do that, or any of the great players that I've spoken about before do what he was capable of doing. And I think that's how he raised the Napoli team the way he did. There weren't great players around him. You know what I mean, Will?
Yeah. No,
but he made them better because he could do it on an individual basis. He wasn't dependent on them in any way. Like Pele had to depend on people getting up the ball up to him, and Ronaldo the same. And these were great players, obviously. But Maradona didn't need that. He could do it on his own.
And what I think makes the move to Napoli in the mid-1980s all the more impressive as well, John, is that he goes to a very unfancy team. He's become a legend. They're probably going to rename his stadium, as Richie was mentioned in the newsround, after him now at this point. But could you ever imagine somebody who is considered to be the best in the world right now? Like Cristiano Ronaldo wasn't leaving Manchester United to join an unfancy team in a different league. He was going to Real Madrid. When Leo Messi leaves Barcelona next summer, he's going to be joining a big club. When Neymar left Barcelona, he went to Paris Saint-Germain. There's something quite unique about the idea of Maradona. You know, this wonderful player who's a World Cup winner in 1986, going to a small team in Italy where Juventus are dominating things and then turning them into double winners of Serie A and winners of the old UEFA Cup, as it was called at the time. There's something kind of special about the fact that he did that. He went to a team and transformed them.
Oh, totally. That's what I say. I mean, I have great respect for Pele and the great players that I mentioned, Ronaldo. I don't think that the players I mentioned could have done what he did, right, at Naples, because Ronaldo, obviously, and Pelé were great finishers particularly, but they depended on people getting the ball to them. Whereas when he went to Naples, he wasn't dependent on his teammates who were average. He did it on his own and was capable of doing it on, dribbling from his own half, making goals, scoring goals. I don't think any of the players that I mentioned there, who were great players, could do what he do. That's what he did. That's why I would separate him from the best. And again, don't mean to be disrespectful anyway to the players that I mentioned, because they were all great players. But I don't think any of them could do individually what he could do.
Yeah, I think as well, John, there's two reasons people seem to love Maradona. Kind of those who grew up at a time when maybe 1986 was the time they started watching football. Understandably, he was the big star of that World Cup and everyone was interested in him as a result. But I think there's kind of two other sides to it. The fact he's such a flawed character, you know, given the issues that he had with cocaine and the ban that he copped afterwards, and the fact that he wasn't the kind of good boy, clean image footballer makes him more interesting maybe than some other footballers. And the other reason I think people love him, John, is that he plays the game in such a beautiful way that it's hard not to like a player who has that kind of natural skill. Yeah, well, I think what he's been honoured for, I think it's a 3-day break in Argentina, was for what he did as a footballer, Will. There's no doubt about that, because other aspects of his life off the pitch wouldn't have been as attractive to a lot of people as his attractiveness as a player. There's no doubt he had a lot of flaws. I think he admitted that himself. You know, he had a drugs problem. I think he had a drinks problem. You know, so he didn't have, after he finished playing football, a very attractive life. But luckily enough, people do remember him in Argentina and around the world for what he did as a footballer. And no matter what he did or had his faults off the pitch, the beauty that he brought to the game and to people watching him will never be forgotten.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, proud supporters of Movember. Gentlemen, let's mow.